his house?
Yes.
Have you seen the front of his house before?
Yes, I have.
Are you familiar with his driveway?
Yes.
Are you familiar with whether there's any surveillance system at Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. McCabe, I'm showing you what has been previously marked as Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
That's John O'Keefe's house.
Could we provide Exhibit 6 for the jury, please? On that screen, is that Mr. O'Keefe's home?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 8. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
That is the side of Mr. O'Keefe's house, the two garage doors.
Is there any indication of surveillance?
Is this a Ring camera right here? Looks,
Is that what John O'Keefe's side of his house looks like?
yes.
I want to show you Exhibit 10. Do you recognize what's in that photo?
Yes.
What is it?
It is the driveway at John O'Keefe's.
You see a car to the left?
Yes.
Do you know whose car that is?
Yes, that's Miss Reed's.
Is that where you left it the night before? For those early morning hours when you drove to Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 11. Do you recognize what's in that photo?
Yes, Miss Reed's vehicle.
Is that the vehicle that Ms. Reed showed you with the broken missing taillight that morning?
Yes, it is.
You mentioned earlier in the night you spoke to John O'Keefe when you called him or he called you about directions to Fairview Road.
Yes.
And you also shared that you had a phone conversation offering directions.
Yes, I did.
Did you tell John that the house at Fairview was near Bella's mom's house?
Sustained as to form, Mr. Brennan.
Okay. What did you tell John as far as directions to Fairview? How did you mark it for him?
I told him to go by, past Bella's house, the Bella's Street, and then to follow it down to the end.
Now I want you to take us back where we were yesterday when we left off. You had brought us to Fairview Road. You had found John.
Yes.
You shared with us that you were trying chest compressions. Before the chest compressions, did you make a phone call?
I called 911.
I'd like to move to introduce a copy of that 911 call.
Okay. Do you have something physically to... Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin does.
Thank you.
With,
Thank you.
with the court's permission, I'd like to play Exhibit 45.
Yes.
No, this is for what emergency.
Yes, I need someone from the third floor, third floor Fairview Road in Canton, Mass. There's a man passed out in the snow.
You can't pull up, but you can't really slow. You can't get to know, okay?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
Yes, the town's address, that line.
I just keep going, like, please, in that area in 6 feet, okay?
But you that line, because it's him.
Okay. I know. We're in the process. I don't keep going to turn.
911, what's your emergency?
I need someone to come immediately to third floor Fairview Road, Canton, Mass.
What's going on?
There's a guy unresponsive in the snow.
In the south, 34?
Yes, third floor, the Albert resident, yes. I just pulled up behind him.
Okay, 34 Fairview?
Third floor Fairview, Canton, Mass, yes.
911, that's under order, where's your emergency?
I don't know.
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
34 Fairview?
Yes, there's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay, in the,
And he's gonna get here, okay?
okay, what's going on? Is he face down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that someone related?
That's his girlfriend's name is John, please.
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46, how long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and it could have been a couple of hours. Is he, Carrie? Is he? I don't know if he's breathing. There are two women trying to it could be body and they're hysterical.
Okay, can you just try to ask him? I know it's tough, but we have to get the fire department going. They just got to know.
Okay. Is he breathing, you guys? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to attempt CPR?
Yes, he's got to do CPR. No, I guess he's gone.
Okay, they don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
Okay. All right, we have the fire department and the police department on the way. If everyone's planning CPR, then I'll hang up with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys upside?
I'm right up front in the car. I know, I'm on the phone with the Andrews. I know, honey, I know. Just, Carrie, you gotta get off of me. Carrie, you gotta get off of him. This is his.
You know if there was any alcohol or drugs involved?
He's been out.
They've been out drinking?
Yes, like I'm talking hours about maybe, and I don't know how long he's been in the snow.
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe hit his head out?
Yes, possibly. I think he's bleeding in the face.
Okay, bleeding from the face? All right.
Yes.
And how big the pool of blood is, if there is any?
Something's coming out the nose, and one of the women is doing CPR.
Okay, one of them is doing CPR?
Yes, they're both working on him.
All right, if you want CPR, and just let me, just give us a call back if you become response, all right? But we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McCabe, describe your mental state when you were speaking to 911.
I guess the best way to describe it was I was in shock. My heart was racing. I was trying to be as helpful as I could and get the information to the most important information out as quick as I could to the 911 operators. But also the scene there with Karen and Kerry was a bit chaotic between the two of them. So I was just trying my best to be as calm as I could, to get help there as fast as I could, and to answer their questions the best that I could.
Before you told the 911 operator John O'Keefe's name and his age, you said there's a man in the snow. Do you know why you chose those words?
I think I just wanted to get out the most specific details. So a man in the snow versus, John O'Keefe and into a story. I think I just was get the details to them as fast as possible to get help there to him as fast as possible.
When you told the 911 operator that your friend John O'Keefe was the person lying in the snow, how did you know his age?
We used to joke because he was a couple months older than me. So I would, say, oh, well, you're older than me. It was a silly little thing between friends.
When you called the 911 operator, had Kerry and the defendant already been around or near John?
Yes.
Do you know if they had begun trying CPR before you called 911?
I'm not sure if they had, because Karen had straddled him and was lifted her shirt, was warming him up, and then Kerry was yelling at her to get off. And I think when Kerry got the blankets and was trying to put him under John, I think as she started to move him and wipe him, blood started to come out. And then Karen was afraid that he was going to choke on his blood and wanted to move him on his side, but then Kerry was yelling at her, we can't move him. And this was kind of all going on while I was talking to 911.
You described what you saw, and you said at some point he was bleeding from the face area. Was that before or after he was moved?
After.
Before he was moved, did you see any active bleeding?
No.
After you called 911, what do you do next?
I think I called my sister, and she didn't answer. And then, as I think I called her as I was walking over to John, and she didn't answer. And then I immediately got down on the ground, and Kerry Roberts asked me to take over.
How long did you try to help John for?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
How long were you and the defendant and Miss Roberts there before someone else arrived?
Police officer was the first to arrive. In the moments, it seemed like a long time, but I think it was fairly quick that they arrived.
Any point during the time when you tried to help Mr. O'Keefe and the first police officer arrived, at any point did you see any signs of life from Mr. O'Keefe?
No.
When the police officer first arrived, do you remember what happened next?
I remember it was very chaotic, but there was talk about a spotlight. And I remember, I think I got up and ran to kind of wave the, to get the police officer's attention so he could see where we were.
And then what happens?
The police officer, not sure specific, I do remember him asking about John. I think he said, is he a drug user? He was just asking some basic questions.
And what's the environment? What's going on around you?
Karen's just running around crazy, like just yelling, screaming, kind of like a ping pong.
What are you trying to do?
I was just trying to talk to the officer. I guess I just went into this like type of mode of, all right, I have to just talk to him, get the information out, figure out like how we can best help John and like what happened to him and try to save him ultimately.
And what happens next?
More officers begin to come, fire and EMT, so the scene becomes active with a lot of different presence. You know, John, I think they lift John onto a board at one point. The officers are asking us questions. Karen's kind of coming over, talking to the questions, and then kind of just running away, and then she just runs back over. She's doing a lot of screaming, a lot of repetitive, is he dead, is he dead, is he dead? You know, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Kerry, I think, Kerry's off kind of making phone calls, I believe, to John's family.
Do you know what time the first responders lifted John from the ground and put him on that bed?
I don't know a time, but it was...
Okay, that's the only question.
Okay.
You heard your 911 call. Do you know the time of that 911 call?
Not off the top of my head, no.
At some point, did you talk to a number of different people at the scene?
Yes.
And who were you talking to?
The first officer was Officer Saraf. I know I spoke with him. I spoke with an Officer Lank, an Officer Good. There were other officers, I don't remember their names. There were EMTs, I don't remember their names either.
You have lived in this area for a long time?
Yes.
You're active in the community?
Yes.
Did you know Sergeant Good from before that night?
I knew of him. I didn't know him personally.
Did you know Detective Lank?
Yes, I knew him.
How did you know him?
We were friendly.
Did children ever associate with each other?
Not until recently.
After you had a chance to speak to some of the officers, did you move around at all yourself?
Yes, the officers would talk to us here and then a little bit over to the side. I tried to comfort Miss Reed. At one point, Miss Reed was very upset, and one of the officers thought it would be best if maybe she went and just sat in one of the cruisers for a little bit, because she was just doing a lot of screaming and yelling, and I think they were just trying to, get, work on John and make the scene a little less chaotic. So I went into the back of the car with her, and Kerry Roberts came over, and then we all were just sat in the back of the, Karen and I kind of were scrunched and sitting in the back, and Kerry was at the door of the cruiser.
Why did you get in the car with the defendant?
She was crying. She asked me to get in. We held hands. We prayed. She did have blood on her hands, and she said, "Could I have gotten my period? Who's going to take care of the kids?" She just kind of was all over the place. And then at one point, we saw them moving John towards the ambulance. And at that point, Miss Reed started yelling to Miss Roberts, "Go check on him. Are they working on him? Is he dead? Is he dead?" And at that point, myself and Miss Reed got out of the car, and she started yelling and pulling on me to Google hypothermia and Google how long it takes for somebody, to die in the cold.
When the defendant first asked you to Google an inquiry about hypothermia, were you still inside the police cruiser, or were you outside?
Outside.
What was the weather? I know it's an obvious question, but how cold was it?
It was very cold, windy, the snow was blowing. As I stated, I have multiple sclerosis, so when I am out in either extremely hot or cold temperatures, I lose the feeling and sensation in my fingers, which obviously made the Googling very hard for me to do because of my, motor skills.
So when you were outside of the car with the defendant and she had asked you to do a search regarding hypothermia, did you try to do that?
Yes, I did.
Do you know the exact time from your memory? Not from reading or learning, but from your memory. Do you remember the exact time you did that?
No.
Was it after the police came that morning?
Yes.
Had you ever attempted to search about hypothermia any time before that moment, that morning?
No.
Or that day?
No.
That week?
No.
Was this the first time that morning after the defendant asked you to search that you searched that phrase?
Yes, it was.
And did you complete your search and get a result?
So I don't know what came up, because I think as I entered it, I think I misspelled things. And so then I think I tried a second search. And again, I don't think I even paid attention to what came up, because we were already on to the next thing. Karen was already moving and screaming about, the next thing to Kerry. Are they working on him? Is he dead?
Did the defendant move somewhere from the point when she first asked you to try to Google about hypothermia to something else?
She was next to me, and then I think she took off. Like, she kept kind of running off.
And what did you do?
I believe as they were I think I stood there, I believe as they were putting John into the ambulance, I went back kind of to the original spot where we had been talking to the police. And at that point, a new officer might have come, because I remember talking to multiple officers there.
At some point, did you go back towards the area of Ms. Roberts' car?
Yes, that's where I'm referring to, sorry.
At some point, were you with the defendant when she spoke to an officer and a first responder?
Yes.
Do you remember if the first responder was a man or a woman?
I remember there was a woman right next to us, yes.
Do you remember if that was before or after the defendant asked you to search about hypothermia?
I'd be guessing if I then don't.
Don't guess. Mm-hmm. When the defendant was speaking to the first responder, the woman. Were you near?
Yes.
Did you hear or do you remember the defendant saying anything to the first responder?
Yes.
What did she say?
She told the first responder, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
When she told the first responder, I hit him, how did you react?
I was like startled, kind of like, what are you saying? What are you talking about?
Did you say anything to the defendant?
I think after the second or third time she was saying it, I was like, Karen, Karen, like, what are you saying?
Why were you trying to interrupt her?
Because I thought she was just talking crazy, and I'm saying, why is she saying she hit him?
Were you trying to look out for her?
Yeah.
Sustained. I'll strike it. You can ask it differently.
What was your motivation for trying to interrupt the defendant making the statements to the first responder?
Karen was hysterical, irrational, kind of.
I'll move on.
Okay, I'm going to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
All right, guys, how y'all doing? Welcome back. We can skip the sidebar, fortunately, because we're
To
behind.
wake them up.
The officers further? Yeah.
Let's change her description.
After you made the search at the defendant's request for an inquiry regarding hypothermia, did you have a chance to speak to the officers further?
Yes.
Did they ask you to do anything or go anywhere?
Yes. Officer Lank asked me to go into my sister's house and to wake them up.
And your sister's name again?
My sister, Nicole.
And that is the house you were in the night before?
Yes.
And after you spoke to the officer, they requested you go in to speak to your sister, did you?
Yes.
Was there any directive on what you should speak to your sister about?
No.
After the officers asked you to go into the house, did you?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what door you went through?
Yes, I went through the front door.
Was the door locked?
Yes.
How did you get in?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said, was it unlocked?
No, I asked if it was locked.
Oh, sorry. It was unlocked.
As you're approaching the house, were there any lights on?
No.
Was it dark?
Yes.
Any sign of any movement inside the house before you went in?
No.
Take us through walking through the front door. What happens?
So I went in the front door. I opened the door. I walked up the stairs into their hallway, and then I think I knocked on their door.
Bedroom door?
Their bedroom door, and then I opened the door. I went in, and I walked over to the bed, and I was like, Brian, Nicole, because I was in a position where I felt like the world was going on around me, so much was happening, but I also was aware that I was just about to wake up two people that are sound asleep, and they're going to see me standing over their bed and be startled, wondering, what am I doing here?
So what happens?
So it took a minute or two, and then Brian woke up, and he immediately was like startled and was like, Jennifer, what's going on? What are you doing? And then I believe I tried the best I could to say what was going on. I think I said, we found John.
You don't need to describe
Okay.
again, but I want to know their reaction and your interaction with your sister and Brian Albert.
They woke up startled and confused.
Did you have a conversation with them?
Yes.
How long was that conversation?
Brief. They got up, got dressed. I spoke to them.
And where did you go and where did they go?
Then all three of us went down the stairs.
The upstairs to the downstairs?
Upstairs to downstairs,
And
yes.
upstairs is the second level, is downstairs the first level?
Yes.
As you come down the stairs, can you see the front door?
Yes.
Is there anybody in the house at that point?
I saw Officer Lank.
In the house?
Yes.
Do you know if he had been invited in?
I have no idea.
When you came down the stairs and saw Officer Lank, where was your sister and Brian Albert?
They were walking with me down the stairs.
And did you see whether or not the officer spoke with your sister and your brother?
He did.
Brother-in-law? I'm sorry.
He did, yes.
Were you there during that conversation?
No,
How long was that conversation, do you know?
not sure.
Where did you go when the officer was speaking to your sister and your brother-in-law inside their home?
I was standing at the front doorway, and then my husband, Matt, had just arrived.
What happened next?
I started talking to Matt, and almost immediately Officer Lang came, got Matt, and asked if he could talk to him outside.
Okay. At this point, I want to go back and show you some video. Have you seen video in this case before?
Yes.
I'd like to ask the court's permission to display Exhibit 4, and I would like to walk through some of the video.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if you kindly put on Exhibit 4. I'd like to start at 6:09:57. Ms. Gilman, if you can take us to the arrival at Fairview. Could you stop there, please? Ms. McCabe, do you recognize this scene?
Yes.
Is that morning?
Yes.
The car directly in front of this dash cam, do you know whose vehicle that is?
Kerry Roberts.
On the left, we see somebody with a blue parka or jacket. Do you know who that is?
I believe that's me.
Can you continue to play, please? Can you stop there, please? Does that fairly depict your first interaction with law enforcement?
Yes.
Do you see the flagpole in that video?
Yes.
And is that the area where you found John?
Yes.
I'd like to move forward in the video, if we can move forward to 6:14:45, please. Could you stop there? Can you identify people on that video from right to left, if you can?
I don't know the officer. That's myself. I believe behind me, that's Miss Reed.
And this is about, let me get the time correctly, 6:14:47. And do you know where John is at this point?
Are they lifting him to the left?
Okay. Could you continue, please, Ms. Gilman? Could you stop there? The person all the way to the left near the flagpole, do you know who that is?
I believe Kerry Roberts.
And is that the area where John was found?
Yes.
And that's at 6:15 a.m.? If you don't know, that's okay. Do you know what Ms. Roberts was doing at 6:15 a.m.?
My guess is
I don't want you to guess, just
Oh,
if you
I don't know.
Okay. Now, you're over to the right, is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Continue, please. Is that Kerry on the left?
Yes.
Stop, please. On the right, do you see yourself?
Yes.
And which person are you?
I'm the one next to the one with the fluorescent yellow.
Is your back to us?
Yes.
To the right in yellow. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
Continue, please. Continue. Stop, please. Do you see the defendant move from the right to the left?
Yes.
Do you see the yellow jacket?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not that's the woman first responder?
I believe so, yes.
Do you know why the officer moved the defendant over from right to left?
I don't.
Okay, continue, please. Stop. At that part, is there a conversation between the defendant and the first responder?
Yes.
Are you listening?
Yes.
Continue. Stop. Do you see the officer that was with you in the group?
Yes.
Do you see him now turned away from the group speaking to somebody else?
I do.
Continue, please. Thank you. If you could move ahead to 619, please. Is that you, Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Is that Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Stop for a moment. Do you know at which point you went to the officer's car and sat in the back with Ms. Reed?
I believe it's right after this.
Can you continue, please? Is that Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Stop, please. Was it before or after that moment that you sat with the defendant and Ms. Roberts stood outside the car and you prayed?
I'm not exactly sure from
Okay.
that video.
That's fine. If we could move forward to 6:23:40, please. At this time, are you still with the defendant behind this car in some spot?
Yes, I am.
Is it during this time, 6:23 and 6:24, you tried to make those searches at the defendant's request?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you can move forward to 6:26:15. Pause, please. Ms. McCabe, do you see anybody returning to Ms. Roberts' car or in that area?
Yes.
And who did you see?
I saw myself, and I'm standing outside of the car speaking to Officer Lank. I saw Kerry go up and near her car. I'm not sure if she went into it. And I saw someone walk Miss Reed into the car.
Is it around this time you have a conversation with Mr. Lank?
Yes.
And what does he tell you again around this time?
He's, at this point, I think, asking me questions about what had happened. And then soon after, he asks me to go into my sister's house.
Ms. Gilman, if you can fast forward to 6:34:15, please. Stop, please. You described that the house had no lights on. Is that a fair depiction of,
Yes.
of the view?
Yes.
Do you see a figure walking up the driveway?
Not on this pause clip, but I did see it, yes.
Let's play it and see if you can identify.
Yes, I can see myself walking up.
Where are you now?
I'm walking up the path to go up to the stairs into the house.
And this is at the request of Officer Lank?
Yes.
And you described first you went in and woke up your sister and brother-in-law?
Yes.
Could we move forward to 6:39, please?
The alarm will never stop being funny.
Stop. And do you see something happen with the house at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And what happens?
Light went on.
I'll note it's 6:39:08. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. After first responders took John and you had gone in your sister's house, what did you do next?
Next, after Officer Lang spoke to my husband, Kerry Roberts, her and I had a conversation. She was going to go pick up John's parents in Braintree. At first, I had told her I would go with her, but then Officer Lang said that I needed to, one of us had to stay at Fairview to speak to the, I believe it was the state troopers that would be coming.
Did you stay at Fairview?
I did, yes.
What was your mental state at that point?
Again, I was in shock. The best way I can describe it is the feeling of I'm present and everything's going on around me, and I'm just trying to process and make sense of everything.
Did you speak to your sister about what happened?
Yes,
Did you speak to your brother-in-law about what happened?
yes,
And were they giving you any comfort or support?
yes, they were being very comforting and supportive.
As you were waiting at Fairview, did anybody else come to the house?
Well, my husband, Matt, had arrived. A little while later, Julie Albert had arrived. She was dropping something off, and then Brian Sr. called her in.
Is Julie Albert the wife of Chris Albert?
Yes, she is.
And Brian Albert and Chris Albert are brothers?
Correct.
When she arrived, did you talk to her?
Yes.
Were you in a group? Were you talking to people privately?
No, we were all sitting around the kitchen table.
And why were you talking to everybody?
We were trying to figure out what had happened. They were trying to be supportive, trying to help me.
What was your mood?
I was extremely concerned. I was calling Kerry, trying to get updates about John. I was worried about John, his family, about Kaylee.
At that point, did you know whether John was going to live?
I had a very strong, I think deep down I knew that John was gone. But, you know, until you hear it, I think there was that little bit of hope, maybe.
Did you speak to anybody but Kerry, who was not at the home that morning?
I believe I spoke, yeah, Miss Reed.
You had a conversation?
Yes, I spoke to her when she was in the ambulance.
Did you speak to her again later that day?
No, I think I texted her asking her for Kerry's number because I didn't have it.
Did you hear back?
No,
Did you ever speak to Miss Reed again?
no, I've never spoken to her again.
When you were trying to get information from Kerry and you were in Fairview, did anybody else other than the people you've described arrive at Fairview?
Chris Albert, Brian Higgins showed up, and Chris Albert.
Did you know Brian Higgins?
I knew him as a friend of Brian's.
Did you see him at the waterfall that night before?
Yes, I did.
And after you arrived at Fairview that night, after leaving the waterfall, was Brian Higgins one of the people there?
Yes.
And did you talk about what had happened in front of Brian Higgins as well?
Yes.
Was there a group discussion?
I wouldn't say discussion. I would just say, like, for instance, someone would ask me a question because everybody this didn't make sense to anybody. No one knew what had happened.
Agreed.
So just move on.
And so was there a lot of questions about what you saw and heard?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you felt like you were in a state of shock. Did you feel like you were still in that state, or were things changing mentally?
Little by little, as I sat there, I started things started coming back to me that had been said to me earlier.
Did something significant come back to you about what happened earlier or what you heard?
Yes.
And what is that?
When Miss Reed stated to myself and the female, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
And did anything else over the course of that morning come back to you about that moment?
Throughout, when I was still at Fairview or throughout the day?
Still at Fairview.
I believe that was maybe the main thing. I can't be sure what memories came back.
When you remembered the defendant's statements to the first responder, Did you decide to do something with that information?
Yes, Officer Lang had said if I, remembered anything or needed anything before the state, the state police came to give him a call.
Did you?
I did, yes.
And you knew Officer Lang?
I did, yes.
Were you comfortable calling him?
Yes, I was.
Did you tell him the information that you had remembered?
I just asked him to come back to Fairview.
Did he?
He did, yes.
When he came back, did you speak to him?
Yes, I did.
Were you with the group or were you alone?
No, it was with the group.
And did you tell him what you had remembered?
I did, yes.
How long did you stay at Fairview for?
I believe somewhere between 11:30. I'm being approximate with my times. Officer Proctor called me from the state police.
Do you know how he got your number?
No.
Did you have a discussion with him?
He said he would like to come by and question me, and I'm not sure if he said at your house or if I said I need to go home because I had 4 kids at home that were still sleeping, and I knew that I had to go home to them and eventually break this news to them and comfort them, and I knew that was going to be a whole nother situation to deal with.
Did you speak to him on the phone before you went home or
A
after?
quick phone call, I'll see you at my house.
At that point, did you share any information with him?
No, not on the phone.
Did you return home?
I did, yes.
Do you remember about what time that was?
I'm going to say 11:30 or after, approximate.
General?
General, yeah.
Okay. When you got back home, did you have a meeting or speak with Mr. Proctor?
I did, yes.
Was it a phone call or an in-person conversation?
He came into my house with Officer Buchanan.
Okay, him and Trooper Buchanan came in?
Yes.
Was there anybody else at your home?
My husband was home, and my brother-in-law, Brian Albert, came over.
Did you speak to them?
Yes.
Did you tell them any additional information at that point?
The troopers or?
The troopers?
Yes. I know I had said what Karen had said to me, and then she had said I hit him. Could I have hit him? I told them how she showed up at my house. I just basically gave them the events of that morning.
At that point, did you mention anything about the defendant's broken taillight?
At that conversation, no.
Did they leave?
They did leave, yes.
At some point, did they reach out to you again, or did you reach out to them?
At some point, I had another conversation with them a few hours later. I'm not sure if they called me or if I called them.
Do you know what generally the content of that conversation was?
Yes, I had remembered that Karen had told me about her taillight.
As you're processing that morning, are you trying to think and recreate the event, or are you trying to put it out of your mind?
I couldn't get it out of my mind.
While you were at home, did you receive any updates from anybody, Kerry Roberts or anybody, about John?
Yes, when I was still at the Alberts, Kerry had given me word that, John had passed. Then once I got home, I know different friends who were starting to hear.
Without content, were you receiving contacts, calls, text
Yes.
messages from other people?
Yes.
And were you reaching back out to other people?
Some, yes.
At some point, did you go over to Meadows Road?
On Sunday, I did, yes.
Was Sunday the next day?
Yes, it was.
Why did you go over to Meadows?
Kerry and I went over with my daughter and her daughter to see the family and to offer support and
said
our
you-
sympathy.
You said you and Kerry. How did you get there?
Kerry picked me up.
Prior to that evening, you and Kerry, you described, weren't friends or familiar?
Correct.
Were things changing?
Yes, rapidly.
When she picked you up, who else did she pick up with you?
My daughter, who is Kaylee's friend.
And was anybody else, were any of Miss Roberts' family in the car?
Yes, her daughter was in the car as well.
So it was you, Miss Roberts, and your 2 daughters?
Yes.
You said you went to Meadows.
Yes.
Why did you go there?
To offer our condolences, sympathy, support, to be with the family. I love them.
Were they staying at Meadows?
They were at Meadows, yes.
When you went there that next day, can you describe the traffic and the people that were there?
There was a house full of family, friends, coworkers, loved ones. The car repairman, like anyone and everyone.
Did you ever see the defendant?
No.
While you're at the house, did you have a chance to speak to Miss O'Keefe?
Yes, I did.
At some point that day, did you leave the house?
Yes.
Who did you leave with?
Carrie and my daughter stayed to be with Kaylee, and we left with her daughter.
Where did you go?
We were heading home, but then we ended up dropping off her daughter at her friend's house.
Now, who's her daughter?
Ca-
Don't give me a name. Carrie's daughter?
Carrie's daughter, yes.
And was Carrie's daughter friends with any of the Lanks?
Yes, Carrie's daughter's good friends with Mike Lank's daughter.
When Ms. Roberts drove over to Mr. and Mrs. Lank's house, did you meet anybody?
Yes, her daughter, Carrie's daughter, went in the house, and Mrs. Lank came out. Her and Carrie are very good friends, so she came out to offer support and condolences.
Was it still cold outside?
Yes, it was freezing.
When she was offering her support, was she inside or outside of the car?
She jumped into the back seat.
During that time you spent with Officer Lank's wife, did you ever go into the house?
I have a faint memory. I think I went in and used the bathroom at one point.
Okay. When you were having the conversation with Mr. Lank's wife, were you talking about what had happened?
Yes, Carrie was just explaining the morning, the phone calls, the scene, things like that.
Were you trying to get any type of inside information or push the investigation in any particular direction?
No, I didn't speak much. It was mostly Carrie and Trish was just being a supportive friend to Carrie.
At some point, did you get together with Ms. Roberts and try to memorialize what you had saw or thought that morning?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Peg had asked Carrie to do a timeline, so Carrie came over and we were sitting down talking about it, and so my sister was there and she said that she would jot it down for us.
And so when you got together, it was at the request of Mrs. O'Keefe?
Yes.
When she made that request, did you ask you to do that? Did you question why?
No, she wanted us to do it, so I did it.
Why?
She wanted us to remember and try to jot down everything we remembered so we wouldn't forget.
So I'm going to sustain discretion. Sure, as disregard, that's
Did you speak to officers further in the future?
Yes.
Can you count how many times you spoke with police or the interviews you had?
There were a lot, or a good amount, I should say.
At some point, did any of the police officers ask if they could take your phone and copy everything on it?
Yes.
Did you have any hesitation about that?
ask a different thing.
Were you cooperative?
Yes.
Why?
I wanted to help in any way I could.
May I approach?
Yes.
Handing you a piece of paper, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
That's my signature.
Do you know what that document is?
Yes, it's the consent form that I signed from my phone.
I can introduce this as an exhibit.
Okay. Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, we can do it at sidebar. I have no objection to the identification of it. Moving it as exhibit, I do have objection.
Okay, I'll see the temper.
More sidebar time. Sidebar time is glorious time for you and me, baby.
Yes.
And have you discussed it with police over time?
Yes.
I have no further questions at this time.
All right, this should be pretty interesting.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your testimony today?
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
She asked if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Yes.
Did you discuss anything after that, after she testified with her about her testimony?
No.
We know that through her testimony that you had a conversation with her the morning that she testified.
Yes.
Right? Did you discuss what you anticipated to be her testimony in that conversation before she testified?
No.
Have you and Ms. Roberts ever discussed anything about either one of your testimonies, either in the last proceeding or in anticipation of this proceeding?
No.
So for the entirety of the last year, even though you both went through a proceeding last year where you both testified under oath and it was highly, highly publicized, neither one of you, your good friend Carrie Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time?
No, we've discussed the case and we've discussed what happened that moment, the moments of the morning, but we have not discussed testimony.
Okay, so let's break that down for a second. I'm talking about, because the timing matters, I'm just asking at this point, if you'll bear with me, just the year from last year at a different proceeding to this year, you have discussed this case
Yes.
with Ms. Roberts.
Many times, yes.
And you've discussed the specifics of her memory, which would be reflected in her testimony, correct?
We talked about what happened that morning.
So you were talking about what she remembers happening that morning, correct?
No, what happened that morning.
Okay, so not to put too fine a point on it, Ms. McCabe, but if you asked me what I had for dinner last night, it's my memory of what I had for dinner last night. Would you agree with that?
Sustained.
Did you talk about her perception of what happened that morning during the last year?
We've talked about what has happened, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to break it down between you and Ms. Roberts. You've discussed her perceptions and her memory of what happened, as well as, and separate and apart from, your memory and your perceptions, correct?
Correct.
So there have been circumstances in which you and Ms. Roberts have compared, by definition, what she remembers versus what you remember, correct?
I wouldn't say compare.
Now let's move to well, what would you say in terms of what you've discussed and why?
I would say that we've both talked about what we've discussed, but it wasn't like a comparison. We weren't comparing anything.
You've talked about what you discussed. What does that mean? Talked about your testimony?
No, we've discussed what happened that moment,
Right.
and in those moments. So, when I got a phone call, and that's my story. I got a phone call in the morning, and then Carrie can say, yeah, I got a phone call as well.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were
truth.
yours.
It's the truth.
Okay. So, for instance, when you got a phone call at 4:53 in the morning, Carrie Roberts wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
But you've discussed that with her.
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception of that, your memory of that phone call was, even though she was not recipient to and did not witness that phone call, correct?
I've told her about the phone call, correct.
As well as many other details that she was not privy to personally, correct?
Correct.
Conversations that you've had, for instance, conversations that you claim you've had with Ms. Reed, correct?
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception is of those conversations, or your memory was, or is, of those conversations with Ms. Reed, correct?
Which conversations with Miss
Any
Reed?
conversations, just anything that she wasn't privy to. You've discussed that with her.
Some things, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And conversely, Ms. McCabe, obviously, she's also discussed certain perceptions and memories that she has about this case, and the facts of this case, as she recalls them, that you were not necessarily privy to, correct?
Yes,
things that may have taken place outside your presence, correct?
correct.
And you've talked about things, I'm sorry, she's talked to you about things, now I'm getting myself confused. Y'all have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception. And you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times would you say you and Ms. Roberts have discussed your individual perceptions of what you remember happening on the 28th or the 29th of January 2022? How many times?
It would be hard to put a number on that. We talk about, it's hard. We're bonded. We talk about the trauma that we relive every day. Karen called us for help and we both answered the phone.
And that bonding is the glue that holds you two together. Is this case, correct?
Yes.
So that probably, by definition, is the foundation of many, many, many of your conversations. Wouldn't you agree?
We've grown into friends where we talk about many other things besides the case.
Sure, the movie you saw last weekend and what the kids are doing next week.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. We
Okay,
talk
so-
many different things, just like girlfriends do.
I'm just concerned with and asking you about the subject matter of this case and the details and the facts of this case. You two have probably talked hundreds of times, that's fair to say, about your individual perceptions, your respective perceptions of this case, correct?
This happened 3 years ago, and we've talked about it time and time again. This case has traumatized us, so
And
it's a
talking
huge part
about-
of our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's, I'm sorry. I believe it just, I meant traumatized our lives.
Okay. It would be impossible for you two to have had so many conversations about your respective perceptions of the details of that day without that influencing the other person, correct? You've somehow been influenced by Miss Roberts's perceptions and her memories, correct?
I don't think I would say influenced.
Would you say that she's been influenced by your perceptions and your memories?
Objection.
Would you say that, Ms. McCabe?
No, I wouldn't.
Next question.
How many times have you met with anybody from the DA's office? And I'm just going to limit the time frame right now in anticipation of your appearance in this trial, yesterday and today.
I'd say roughly 4 or 5.
Can you give me a time frame when those 4 or 5 meetings were?
I don't have dates. I do remember at one point I met with Mr. Brennan. He was new to the case, so I went in and he introduced himself.
How long ago was that? Weeks or months?
I can't give you a time frame. I'm sorry.
Do you think it was last summer?
No.
Do you think it was?
No, it was more recent.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
wasn't in the fall of last year?
No.
It was in 2025 sometime?
I believe so, yes.
You think it might have been February, January?
Again, I can't give you an exact. I'm sorry.
All right. I want to talk about the time frames of those conversations, then I'll ask you a little bit more about those conversations. So that was the first meeting that you had was with Mr. Brennan in anticipation of your testimony. What were the subsequent 4 meetings or so that you've had? With whom and approximately what time?
Okay, so another meeting with Mr. Brennan. Are you looking for who was
Sure.
there?
Who
All
else
right.
was there?
I mean, can I give you a general answer? I didn't write down like every meeting who was there, but
Of course.
generally, okay.
Was Mr. Lally there?
During 1 or 2 of the meetings, he was, yes.
Was Ms. McLaughlin there?
Yes.
Was there anybody else from the DA's office there?
The officer or Trooper Tully was there at 1. Trooper Buchanan was there at 1. The witness advocates were there. And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are 2 meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the 3rd meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure, understood.
I apologize.
How many meetings would you have? Let's just start there. How many meetings have you had with Mr. Brennan and either staff or colleagues?
So after the first initial meeting, I
Right.
would say, again, I didn't write them down. Off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 more after that.
Okay.
Excuse me, first initial one.
So that's either 4 or 5 meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues, Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin perhaps, Mr. Nelson perhaps, the other employee of the DA's office, and Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
Correct.
You asked questions about at any of these meetings. I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of
Okay.
these 5 meetings. By the way, when was most recent?
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to,
Yes, I'm going
Yeah,
to
I-
stop you right there.
oh, okay.
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm just going to lead you through this question.
Okay.
You had a conversation last night. I'm not interested in that particular conversation. That was for a very specific purpose. I'm asking you about everything leading up to, but not including last night's conversation, okay?
Okay.
So let's just leave that one out. You've had, I think you mentioned either 4 or 5 other meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues and or law enforcement.
Yeah, and I might have, in the 5, included that one from last night.
Okay, fair enough. Were you asked questions in those, we're just going to call them 4 meetings. Were you asked questions during those 4 meetings about your testimony at the first proceeding last year?
I reviewed I did review some of my testimony, yes.
In what format?
I
Paper
watched.
transcript or do
No, we just watched a little bit of it.
you watch your direct examination?
A little bit, yes.
Did you watch your cross-examination?
A little, yes.
Who cross-examined you?
A little. A little. She watched a little bit of it. Uh-huh. Okay. By a little, do you mean all of it multiple times? Is that what you mean by a little? In the same way I've watched a little bit of Lord of the Rings? Is that what you mean by a little? I don't know, man.
You did,
That was me.
yes.
And did you watch the redirect or any part of it?
No,
Did you watch any part of any subsequent version of recross or additional questions that you were asked?
I don't believe so, no.
Was there a specific area that Mr. Brennan asked you to look at and review in terms of your direct or your cross-examination?
No,
Did you watch the entirety of the direct examination and the entirety of the cross-examination?
I do not believe so, no.
Were you questioned by Mr. Brennan following your review of that direct and cross-examination?
No.
So he didn't ask you any questions about any of your answers?
I don't, he showed me a dash cam and would ask me to point out who's this, who's that, a waterfall video, is this you, is this somebody? Those were the type of questions that he asked me.
What about any discussion about your demeanor and how you performed in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
I'll ask it a different way. What about your demeanor? I'm using probably a poor word, perform. How you came across your demeanor in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
Did you discuss changing your demeanor in any way, shape, form, or fashion from the last trial the last proceeding to this trial, my mistake. From the last proceeding to this trial, was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Was there any discussion about talking about your background, for instance, your family and your children and being a sports mom, as you talked about in your direct examination?
No, I believe I did that in the previous one as well.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No,
Was there any discussion about how to develop your testimony from beginning to end? I object.
Sustained.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you about, or let me ask it a different way, did Mr. Brennan take you through a series of questions, for instance, as almost a test run of questions that you might be asked either on direct examination or cross-examination?
no.
Did you practice?
Okay, by the way, so far for what it's worth, just because I've been critical of Attorney Jackson in the past with respect to his cross-examination style, I'd like to point that so far this is much more pleasing to me. And of course, this is a witness that is going to be hostile to him. but he isn't approaching it with hostility. So this is a much better way of going about it. Now, he might have to get hostile later. Maybe he will, but he didn't start there. So this is, in my humble opinion, what he should have been doing with respect to the EMTs and the firefighters he started with. He came in way too hot, way too early, over, at least in my opinion, way too little. Right? What he was trying to get to wasn't enough of a distinction to even warrant the effort in the first place, in my humble opinion. The juice was not worth the squeeze, as I've said previously. Like, not everything is important, even in a murder trial, and certainly not everything is equally important, even in a murder trial. So you don't necessarily have to fight for every tiny little micrometer. Sometimes it's just not worth it, right? So this is much better. He's presenting it in a much more relatable, softer way. And this witness is hostile to him, but he's not approaching it with anger and animus. It's much more calm and focused, and he's just doing kind of softer redirects. So I don't know if he's taking notes from somebody, but if he is, I'd like to compliment him. So far, much better. This is much better, Jackson. Thank you for calming the fuck down. This is much more effective. Thank you. Right. Pressing on.
Your testimony with any member of the DA's office?
No.
Were there any sessions where you sat and was subjected to a cross-examination, like a fake cross-examination or a fake direct examination?
No, there
Anything
wasn't.
like that?
No.
What were the things that stand out in your mind? You said you had at least 4 meetings. How long was each meeting, by the way, ish?
The first meeting, I think, was fairly quick. It was just the introduction.
30 minutes, less than 30 minutes?
I don't want to give a time because I'm not sure,
Okay.
but it was fairly quick, yes.
Okay. What about the second meeting?
Again, I don't know specific meetings, but I can tell you that there was a longer one where I did watch some dash cam video, look at different pictures, things like that.
What kind of pictures did you look at? Other than the dash cam video?
The pictures of John's house,
Okay. The same photos that we saw today?
yes.
How long in total would you say all of those meetings were? Just taking them all together?
I really can't give you an estimate, I think.
Just kind of soft. Let the witnesses' failures kind of speak for themselves. Just let the witnesses' inconsistencies, failures, lies, let them speak for themselves. Let it do the work. Let the knife do the work, as a chef might say. Let the knife do the work. And just, this is much better. Thank you. Thank you.
I think the first one was fairly quick. The second one, one of them was a little bit longer, maybe a couple hours.
Okay. Then the third one, was that also a couple hours, or was that one fairly quick?
That was fairly quick, yes.
So fair to say between 2, 3, 4 hours total meeting times?
Again, I'd have to probably go back and look at the date and the time. I really can't give you a specific amount of time. I apologize.
Did Trooper Tully or Trooper Buchanan ask you any questions during the course of any of these meetings?
Regarding the case, no, but we did briefly talk about how my kids were, how their kids were.
But they didn't ask you any questions about your testimony, about about the case, about your memories, about specific facts?
I do not believe so, no.
During any of these meetings, was anybody taking notes? Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, any of the troopers?
No, I don't believe so.
So there was several hours worth of meetings with you, and nobody scribed any notes that you saw?
None that I saw, no.
And these meetings were not recorded?
I do not believe so, no.
Ms. McCabe, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your family because I just want to make sure it's crystal clear who's who. You're married to Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes.
Your sister is Nicole Albert.
Yes.
Nicole is married to Brian Albert.
Yes.
It was Brian Albert's home that you were at, 34 Fairview, that you arrived at where John's body was found, correct?
Yes.
The same home where that late night gathering was on January 28th going into the morning of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself to be close with your sister Nicole and Brian?
Yes, very close.
Your families are, it's not just you and Nicole, your whole families are close, correct?
Yes, we have a very close family.
How long have you known Brian Albert?
Since I was in kindergarten.
You consider him, even though he is
You were in kindergarten once? All right.
not blood related to you, you consider him family.
Yes.
In addition to Brian and Nicole Albert, you're also very close with Chris and Julie Albert, correct?
Yes.
Just to be clear, and I'm going to do this slowly,
Okay.
Brian Albert's younger brother is Chris Albert, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert.
Yes.
You consider Chris and Julie family, even though there may not be a blood relation as well, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is a Canton Select Board member, is that right?
Now he is, yes.
And the Canton, that's in Canton? I said Select Board member, did I mention Canton Select Board member?
It is in Canton,
Okay.
yes.
All right, obviously it's in Canton. The Canton Police Department reports to the Select Board, correct?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that echelon?
No.
Okay. You're aware that Brian Albert, your friend of, I'm not going to say how many years, but since kindergarten, was a Boston police officer.
Yes.
He had been a lifetime law enforcement officer for some 30 years before he retired recently, correct?
Yes.
He's a trained first responder, obviously.
Yes.
Brian Albert and Chris Albert have another brother named Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes.
Kevin Albert is a detective with a police department, correct?
Yes, I believe that's his title. I'm not
Which
100%.
which police department is Kevin Albert associated with?
Canton.
And you've grown up in Canton your whole life, you indicated.
Yes.
Your entire family has grown up in Canton, correct?
Yes.
And you, Ms. McCabe, have three sisters. Nicole, we've talked about. You also have a sister named Shelley, is that right?
Michelle, yes.
Michelle? And Denise, who you mentioned in your direct examination.
Yes.
Nicole is also known by nickname, is that right?
Yes.
What is Nicole's nickname within the family?
Coco.
Coco.
Does Shelley also have a nickname? Well, I guess Shelley is the
Yeah,
shortened
Shelley
name from
is.
Michelle, correct?
Yes.
What about Denise?
She's Dee Dee.
Dee Dee?
DD.
Like D-E-E-D-E-E.
Thank you for spelling that out. And you mean not designated driver? It doesn't
Your
stand for
father
that?
lives close by in a neighboring town, correct?
Yes.
Don't tell me the town, but it's relatively close to Canton.
20 minutes, yes.
Okay. His name is Tom Weeks.
Yes.
There are, I'm not going to go through all of them right now because the family tree is getting large, but there are children, cousins, second cousins, nephews, aunts, uncles. There's a combination of familial relations within that set of folks that I just talked about, Chris and Brian and Nicole and you and Matt and the folks that we've just talked about.
Yes.
That family, that large family, celebrates holidays together, I'm guessing?
We don't typically, celebrate with Kevin and Chris, but my family does, yes.
Along with Brian, Albert, and Nicole.
Yes, of course.
Birthdays are celebrated within that family.
Yes.
Go on vacations together, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Gatherings like the one on the 28th.
Yes.
Special events.
Yes.
Spend weekends together.
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of sporting events. There's a lot of sporting events that y'all go to together.
Yes.
So it is very, very easy to see that it's an extremely close-knit family.
Yes.
And naturally, you're very protective of your family, as anybody would be.
Yes, I love my family.
You also said that you knew, and your words, liked Karen Reed, my client, on the 28th of January 2022, correct?
Yes,
But she very much is not family, correct?
correct.
She certainly was not as important to you as your actual family, the Alberts, the McCabe's, the folks associated with them. Is that right?
Yes,
On January 28th, 2022, members of the Albert family and the McCabe family all went to a bar together, had drinks together that night. Waterfall, we've heard a little bit about that, correct?
correct.
Ultimately, you went back to your sister's house for the after party that we've heard so much about. That was at Brian Albert's house, is that right?
Yes,
You've been interviewed, I think you indicated multiple times, you didn't even give a number of how many times you've been interviewed by police in this case, is that right?
yes,
Your family is connected to people at Boston Police Department. We've just talked about that. Brian Albert, is that right?
well, was a Boston police officer.
Right. So when I say connected, there is some familial or family or friendly connection to that police agency, Boston Police Department. It'd be Brian Albert in this case.
I got
correct?
another one. I got another
The
one.
objection
Hold on.
sustained.
I got another one.
There's also a connection to the Massachusetts State Police through your family. Is that right?
So define connection.
Julie and Chris Albert are very, very close to you.
There we go.
Correct.
I'm close with Julie and Chris, yes.
You're aware that Michael Proctor's sister, Courtney, is basically best friends with Julie.
No, I'm not aware of that. She's best friends with Julie's sister, Jillian.
Okay, so Courtney is best friends with Jillian, who is sisters to Julie,
Yes.
who's married to Chris, who's an Albert, who's the little brother of Brian Albert.
Yes,
Okay? And Canton Police Department, there's also some connections there as well, Kevin Albert being the most obvious of them.
Objection.
You know what, I'm going to allow that. Do you have a connection with the Canton Police Department?
not with the department, but with Kevin Albert.
Right, who's a member of the department.
Yes, but my relationship's with him.
Understood. You've indicated that you've been interviewed by law enforcement agents associated with Massachusetts State, with Canton Police Department. That'd be Officer Lank.
Yes.
Can I
and
stop
Officer
you for a
Good.
second and see counsel at sidebar, please? Sure.
Sidebar. All right, I guess that brings us to live. All right. We've caught up to live. How y'all doing today? How are you having a good day? I hope you're having a great day. I'm having a slightly challenging day due to tech issues, but I appreciate that you're here. As previously mentioned, I have some sort of hardware problem in my PC that we need to figure out. I previously bent the CPU pins, and they had to be unbent, and there might have been damage to the motherboard and or the CPU. I mean, it works, and usually that's kind of a works or doesn't work kind of thing, but somehow maybe there's some problems there. But in any event, what the problem I'm having is when the GPU, the graphics processing unit, when the GPU is put under load, it crashes. And I mean, when I say crashes, I mean it just turns off completely. Like, it's not blue screen, I mean it just turns off, which is suggestive of either a voltage problem or a temperature problem when the GPU is put under load. And so, not quite sure what that is due to, but yeah. So, and I've seen this problem before with putting the GPU under load. For example, when I try to do video rendering in DaVinci Resolve, which involves putting the GPU under load, it will sometimes crash from just doing simple rendering, from putting the GPU under load. So there's some sort of thermal voltage or other problem short somewhere in the hardware. And the PC works fine as long as I don't put any load on it. So that's what we were talking about in chat. For those of you who are wondering what the hell we were talking about, we were talking about that, trying to like spitball ideas about what's going on. And if I have some thermal paste somewhere, which I might have some thermal paste, I might try to reseat the fan on the CPU and try to reseat the GPU and see if that fixes the problem. And if it doesn't, then we'll move on to other exciting steps. But that's what happened this morning. Something GPU, something blah blah blah. So yeah. Yeah. The CPU pins were put back into place by why can't I think of his name right now? He used to be in New York and now he's in Austin. He has a YouTube channel. And why is his name escaping me? I'm having a moment apparently. No, not Linus Tech Tip, different guy. Louis Rossman, that's the one I'm looking for. Thank God. Yeah, the CPU pins were lovingly put back into place by Louis Rossman in Austin, which was extensively appreciated. Thank you. In case you're curious how I bent the pins in the first place, it was me trying to be too clever. I was trying to change the thermal paste because it's like, oh, I'll just, redo the thermal paste. And I tried to remove the CPU fan without removing the bracket that holds the CPU down. So, once the thermal paste is like, once the thermal paste is sort of cured, it holds pretty well to the CPU. And so when you try to remove the fan, you're trying to remove the entire CPU. And I tried to remove the CPU without first removing the bracket that holds the CPU in place. So I tried to remove the CPU from the motherboard without removing the bracket, and that caused problems. So that was me being a dumb. And I bent the pins and caused, probably some damage to the motherboard. And Louis Rossman and his staff was kind enough to bend the CPU pins back into place, which causes it to work. But it's never quite been the same since then. So it could be due to damage to the CPU and or the motherboard. It could be a thermal problem or a voltage problem, possibly also related to that. Or something else, I don't know. But that's the problem we're currently dealing with. It's exciting and fun. How much would a new motherboard run me? The motherboard itself wouldn't be too expensive, but if I'm going to replace the motherboard, I probably should replace the CPU too, which would probably cost me something on the order of $500 or thereabouts, or maybe a little bit more due to tariffs now, actually, to be honest. But probably to replace the motherboard and CPU, probably like $500 or $600. I haven't checked prices recently, but something in that ballpark. The memory would be fine, so I can reuse the memory. The power supply should be fine. It's a 750 watt power supply. Should be fine. The case itself is probably a little small. The GPU barely fits in the case, to be honest. So probably should replace the case, but that's relatively inexpensive. Yeah, so all that stuff. And at least for the moment, I have a appointment now with our good friends at Micro Center, because there's a nice Micro Center facility in Houston. So I now have an appointment with Micro Center on Saturday to bring my case in. And maybe they can take a look at it and provide some recommendations relating to it. And of course, they would have any part I need because Micro Center has everything. So, yeah. And then they can also make fun of my cable management because it's a fucking disaster. Yeah. So I might have to drop some coin. I might have to drop some coin on CPU changes or computer changes. A build stream? Probably not at this point. Last time I put it together, I did do a build stream when I built the PC, but I'll probably just have our good friends at Micro Center do it for me since I'm already going to be there, because they can help me with my cable management disaster fuel. $1,000 for with labor, possibly. That sounds a little expensive, but yeah, I mean, it depends what's obviously needed. It could potentially run into $1,000, but for $1,000, I could just basically rebuild the entire PC from scratch. So yeah, I think I'll just take it into Micro Center and see what they recommend and go from there. If you guys want to donate some super chats or some donations to Ko-fi, by the way, to help fund this endeavor, it would, of course, be extensively appreciated. Coffee.com/uncivil. Because donations to Ko-fi, they only take like 3% as opposed to YouTube, which takes 30%. So it doesn't cost you anymore and your money goes further. So if you want to throw a couple bucks into the coffee.com/uncivil law tin for potential PC repairs, it would, of course, be appreciated. Thank you. Also replace the CPU fan as long as I'm at it too, because the CPU fan is just a stock CPU fan, which, should be sufficient, but as long as I'm at it, replace the CPU fan. Why not? Get myself a different fan for $50 or something. You can send you your PC build. That's okay. I mean, I'll just use PC part picker and I can put together my own PC build. I appreciate it, but I can do it. I've done it before. Yeah, but I probably need to replace the CPU. I mean, it works, but does it though? Has it been compromised in some way? Maybe. So I probably have to replace the CPU. How much is it going to cost me to replace the CPU at this point? That's a good question. Let's look it up. How much is new CPU? Well, what are the prices going for on Amazon these days? This should be depressing. Let's see. $350. $239. Is this without a cooler? Does this come with a cooler or not? Cooler not included. So if I don't buy the fan for it, $230. If I buy the fan that comes with it, $350. Which I think is what I bought last time. It is what I bought last time. I bought it with the fan. The Wraith Prism LED cooler. Ooh. So if I want it, yeah. And then for the motherboard itself, how much is the motherboard going to set me back if I just want to replace it with the same thing I have? The motherboard will set me back $180. So yeah, I can replace. So that's about, what is that? $400 plus the fan. So that's about $450, $500 to replace the motherboard and the CPU. Lame. Please pin the computer donation. We can do that. Well, we can remove the pinned comment anyway. Because we don't need to not talk about it anymore now that we've talked about it. So I'll just pin the donation link if you would like to donate. We can reuse the memory. The power supply itself should be fine. Why would that be a problem? So we can reuse the power supply. The power supply is a 750 watt power supply, which should be more than sufficient for what I need. We can reuse the memory. We can reuse, obviously, the hard drives and stuff. I need to probably replace the hard drive cables, the SATA cables, while I'm at it. Wouldn't be unneeded. How much memory? I believe there's 64 gig in there right now. Let me double check. Yeah, there's 64 gig of memory at the moment. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out if it says what kind of memory I have. I could look it up, but it doesn't seem to be telling me on hardware resources. But yeah, 64 gig of memory is a fair amount of memory. It should be sufficient for what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of memory, but 64 gig should be sufficient. I believe it's DDR4 or 5. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. Let me see if I can find out from my Amazon purchases what memory it was for my past purchases. There's not a lot in it between DDR4 and 5, but let me check. At least in my humble opinion, there's not a lot in it, but you know. It looks like it is DDR4 3600. G-Skill Ripjaws V series dual channel memory. DDR4 at 3600. Should be sufficient. I could pick up another M.2 drive. Yeah, the M.2 drive I have is sufficient. I think it has 2 M.2 slots, but I don't really need more M.2, to be honest. I just need M.2 for really the boot drive. After that, I don't really care very much. I don't even use all the CPU. I just use a solid state drive for my main storage. So I have an M.2 drive for my, boot up drive. And some stuff is on the M.2, but most of the stuff is just on a solid state drive, which is more than sufficient for my needs. I'm not even using all the solid state drive. Yeah, I mean, I'm only using 433 gig of 930 gig. I've got 500 gig left free on my M.2 drive. So, yeah, it's not a problem. CPUID H hardware monitor program might help me diagnose the problem. Fair. I'll download that. Thank you for your suggestion. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Yeah, it's not a hard disk issue. I was just saying, we were just talking about a different subject because someone mentioned M.2. So we moved on to other things. Obviously, it's not the hard drive that's causing the problem. The problem is being caused by either a heat issue, which seems like the most likely. It's overheating, and so the thing is shutting down to save itself. Something's overheating, and so therefore shutting down, which turns the power off. So a heat problem is the most likely. And then some sort of voltage issue is a second problem. And then a third problem is potentially some kind of short caused by either the CPU or memory or whatever. So those are like the most likely things it is to be one of those problems. I don't have any pets. Yeah, no. Could be something as simple as a faulty GPU power cable. It could be something that simple. That's true. If the GPU itself was the problem, the GPU presumably would just shut down. The fact that the entire system is shutting down suggests more to me. It suggests a CPU problem, because that would be behavior you'd expect if the CPU is having a problem, right? If the CPU is overheating, the CPU will shut down completely to obviously save itself. So the most likely solution to me seems to be some sort of GPU heat issue or voltage issue to the CPU, which then, of course, suggests going back to the issue that it's damage to the CPU and or the motherboard as a likely factor. So the damage was not severe enough to cause it to not work at all, but somehow damaged it in some way that's causing a problem when it's put under some kind of load. So although even CPU load doesn't seem to do the trick, so it seems to be only when the GPU is under load, which kind of counters that suggestion. So it's a little unclear. Windows 10. I don't really believe in Windows 11. Yeah, it could be the thermal paste. Probably not. It could be that it could be the thermal paste on the CPU. It could be that the fan is not properly seated, although, of course, Linus Rossman himself seated it, so probably not. The GPU itself is not properly seated. It could be that. There's a lot of potential things it could be. But yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. But for the moment, we don't have to worry about it, because for the moment, we just won't tax the video card, and then it won't be a problem, hopefully, crossing your fingers. So reseating things seems like if I have thermal paste at my house, which hopefully I do have thermal paste, if I have thermal paste, then reseating the CPU, redoing this, reseating the CPU fan, redoing the thermal paste, this time by, first removing the bracket first, so I don't, do that stupid again. Reseating the CPU heat fan, and reseating the GPU would be the most easy tech step, right? And if I have thermal paste, I can do that myself, and then I can put it under load and see what happens. I mean, there's any number of ways to put GPUs under load. There's, plenty of testing software for that. So put the GPU under load and see if it solves the problem. And if it doesn't solve the problem, then we'll move on to other steps. And I might have the thermal paste myself. And if I do, that means I can fix it myself, or at least try to fix it myself. And if it fixes the problem, then great. And if not, then we'll move on to other steps. Thermal paste would result in a heat sensor screaming to increase fan rates and causing glitches. Probably, David. That's probably true. Yeah, although not necessarily true, but you are not necessarily wrong. If it were a heat issue, well, it would be you potentially see glitches before a complete shutdown. That is not wrong. It's not necessarily true, but it wouldn't be unexpected to see problems before a complete shutdown. But again, it could be due to some fault somewhere, due to previous problems in the motherboard or something. Furmark is a good program for stressing the GPU. Yeah, there's a lot of good choices for stressing the GPU. Is Cord on launch? No, they're on break for something. I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll download Furmark and stress test the GPU. Not, live, but, later. Thank you for tech discussion as we work this problem. This is exciting and fun, right? Right? The CPU is Ryzen. It's 3900X Ryzen 9 AMD. Bent CPU pins are not possible unless you built your own CPU. Trust me. I assure you. I promise you. Bent CPU and pins are not only possible, they absolutely 100% occurred. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. I assure you, bent CPU pins are very possible. It was due to me being stupid. It was my fault. But I assure you, bent CPU pins are not only possible, but absolutely occurred. You don't know what you're doing yet? I know some of the things I'm doing. I made a stupid. I made a dum-dum, but I know some of the things I'm doing. It's not my first time building a PC. I've built a PC before. I have a computer science degree. Doesn't mean that I didn't do it doesn't mean I didn't do a stupid, but I'm not a complete idiot, guys. Give me a break. Damn. Yeah. It was my fault. I did a stupid, but it definitely happened. Yeah. It's not possible. Yes, it is. It's very possible. I was there. I was there when the strength of men failed. Lord have mercy. Yeah. Good question from Sporkmaster. If you build a PC and replace one part at a time, is it still the same PC? Ooh, ship of Theseus. Fun question. Also a question interesting for watches as well. What makes a watch authentic is actually a question that I've been pondering recently as I'm taking up watchmaking as a hobby. In case you didn't know, by the way, I've decided to take up watchmaking as a hobby. We tried to build a watch 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, and it didn't go well. It failed. I've ordered new exciting components, and incidentally, those fun exciting components have arrived. So at least some of them have arrived. So it looks like we might have another go at it on Saturday for attempt 2 at a watch build. And so I bought all the components to build the watch and all the parts, and there were some problems that led to issues. And so I've ordered new components, and we're going to give it another go. And one of the questions I've sort of been discussing in my own head is like, what makes a watch authentic? That's actually a really interesting question. At what point is a watch not authentic? And you get into that philosophical problem. It's like, is a watch that's not like from, if it's worked on by anyone other than the factory, is that like no longer authentic is an interesting question. If you took a Rolex to someone other than an authorized dealer, and you could, and they repair it potentially using parts that may or may not be authentic Rolex, is it no longer a Rolex? That's a good question. Like what makes it a Rolex? It is an interesting philosophical question for the day. Rolex won't work on it if it has any parts that aren't 100% Rolex, but that's Rolex's view about what they will or will not do. But what makes it authentic is an interesting question. Yeah, like by comparison to a car, if you go to a shop and they replace parts of your car with non-OEM parts, which isn't exactly unheard of, is it in some sense no longer the same car? Yeah, what makes a Ford car a Ford car? That's a good question, right? If I go in and I replace parts with stuff that's other than Ford, is it no longer a Ford car? Yeah, these lines of delineation are fun and exciting. You want a Braille watch? Braille watch, if it will ever happen, is a little down the line. That is assuming it can be done, that is an advanced build. I assume it's possible. I don't even know how it's possible, but it must be possible. But if it can be done, it will be done much, much later. We're just starting with the basics for now, right? We're just starting with the NH35 movement, which is probably the most ubiquitous movement in the world. And we're just starting with the basics, and we'll work our way through levels of complexity as we do. Oh, thank you. 20 super tips and oh, never mind. That wasn't directed at me. Yeah, I'm not begging for anything. I was just saying if you want to support me, it's appreciated. I mean, people asked. I'm like, okay, this is the situation. People like to know these things, right? People like to know behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. This is the problem. This is the problem I'm having. Here's what I think is going on. Here's what it would cost to replace various components, assuming it's necessary. If you'd like to contribute, here's how you can do it. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that discussion, but whatever. We're just killing time while the court is on break with whatever they're doing right now. I only know what the court is doing. Presumably they're not on lunch break. It's a little early for that, so I'm not sure what they're doing. They're having a discussion about something. I wish we knew what it was, but we don't know. They're unbending pins. They may be unbending pins. Even though I do have a computer science degree, obviously it's not my profession, at least not anymore. So I can diagnose what's going on in court better. At least I could if I knew what was happening. I could diagnose that better. Be like, well, there's your problem. But we don't know what's going on. So it's a little hard to comment about it. Also, by the way, of course, you can support the channel for a mere 99 cents a month by becoming an uncivilian. It's true. By hitting that beautiful, beautiful join button, you can support the channel for 99 cents, which is as cheap as I'm allowed to make it. And then you get to be a member and support the channel and contribute and get behind the scenes content and editing streams and emojis and all that kind of stuff. So you can do that. And we do have higher membership tiers available if you'd like to support us at higher levels. Dave says, personally, I like the fact that your CS degree doesn't mean I have to dump stuff as much down. Thank you. I appreciate that. Something could be happening at the courthouse. That's also very possible. Don't know about that. But if you have information about specific things happening at the courthouse, tell us more if you know about specifically what's happening. I'll even take rumors at this point, as long as, they're on X or something. NH35, I believe is what I said. The date movement. Yeah. I think it's the NH35. I think the 34 is without a date. 35 is date. It's the 36 that has the date. It's trying to keep the model numbers straight, but in any event, it's one of the most popular movements for watches, so let's not worry about it. Defense is asking to enter a family tree chalk. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, 34 has a date in GMT hand. There you go. I'm not personally a big GMT fan. I don't really like GMTs personally, but I'll probably make one just for if no other reason than to have the experience of doing so. But yeah, GMT will be a later build. Our sort of tentative working plan here is we're going to just start, we're going to probably do a couple with the 35 movement or the date movement or without the date movement. So we'll do those variants. Probably do a couple of those, then probably do the skeletonized movement, which I think is like NH72 or something like that. And then after that, I'd like to do the mecha quartz movement. It's called the VH something that has a ticks 4 times a second on the second hand, because I really like that movement a lot. So I'd like to do that at some point. Also probably do a manual wind movement that has a small seconds at the 6 o'clock position. I think that's a Miyota movement that I was looking at that does that. And then we'll see kind of where we go from there. Sort of the tentative working plan. $20 from amateur Anth. Do you think I have a chance with Kayla? I don't want to comment about that, but thank you for your super chat in any event. Can I do a Casio calculator watch build? Not really. I mean, I'd just be taking components and just putting them together, and I'm not sure what the value in that is. Like, if I just did a perfect replica of a watch, like, why not just buy the watch, particularly as cheap as a Casio calculator is? There's nothing interesting about it. Watching from New Hampshire, we appreciate you visiting us from New Hampshire. Thank you. That was a waste of $20. Well, we do appreciate the support. If you'd like to say something else, instead, I'll be happy to read that out for the $20. But there's never a promise to read any specific message, and some topics I'd prefer not to talk about. But because you pay $20, if you'd like to say something else, I'll read that out. If you'd like to, say something that would be a little bit more on point or positive or not, whatever, I'll read it out to honor your $20 support. I also bought a little tool to help with the second hand putting on. I bought a $35 tool to help place the second hands on the wash. So hopefully that will help. And I bought myself some more powerful magnification glasses that also have lights on them. So hopefully that'll be nice. Do I have a 3D printer? No, not this time. Again, I'm just going to take off the shelf components for now. If the hobby becomes a thing and, I really like it, then, at later points, we'll build tools as needed. I don't want to buy more tools in anticipation, so we'll just start with taking, off the shelf components and kind of take the most common ones at that, start there. And we'll use slightly more irregular movements, and we'll, do different case sizes, and we'll do that. And then, eventually, if I really like the hobby, then, we'll invest money in it, which could include down the line things such as a 3D printer or, for example, a laser, so I can engrave my logo on the watch dial, because that would be cool. But, that's not an initial investment. That is a down the line investment as if the hobby takes fold. I'm trying to keep my investment, relatively minimal. If for no other reason I don't like it, then I don't have that much expenditure. So, we'll see. Have I had my fill of Massachusetts accents? Not yet, not really. What are the chances with a third DUI of going to jail? Depends on your judge, and also incidentally depends on your state. Not every state treats multiple DUIs the same. So it's kind of a difficult question to answer in the abstract relating to your question. Not every state treats DUIs the same. Some of them treat them harsher than others. Some of them treat multiples harsher than other. Some states, it seems like you can get lots of DUIs and apparently never go to jail. Some states treat it pretty harshly with mandatory minimums after a certain number of DUIs. So I can't really answer your question in the abstract. It would depend on your state. But thank you for your super chat once again. It is appreciated. We'll also install our own watch crystals down the line. Right now, just getting the cases, basically complete. But, down the line, install our own watch crystals. That could be fun. Apparently, according to Kestrel in the mod chat in Discord, there's a private meeting in the courtroom with Judge Canoni, the prosecutor, defense, and members of the O'Keefe and Reed family. I'm told everyone was asked to leave the courtroom for that. I'll let you know what it was about. Thank you, courtesy of Ted Daniel on X relating to that story. I haven't had clam chowder in a hot minute. I mean, that certainly explains the length of the break. Yeah, unclear what that's all about. So hopefully we'll learn some more information soon. As I continue to kill time. Yeah, you can speculate about what it's about if you like. Humorous answers are appreciated in particular. We're probably not going to figure out what it's about, to be honest. We're probably never going to know until the transcripts eventually get released someday in the far future. Probably the judge is going to come back and we're just going to pick up cross-examination, perhaps in some different way or something, but there's probably going to be no announcement in court relating to what's happening. So probably it's going to look seamless to us, and then we're just left with open speculation. So that's exciting. But let us know if anything else is said on Twitter relating to this, and we can see what the hell is going on. Let me see what else is going on relating to this on Twitter. What do people have to say about it? See if there's any other commentary. I'll do latest instead of top, sort by time. See what's going on. Apparently, Paul O'Keefe went into the DA's office with Brennan. Both have left the office and Brennan went upstairs, according to Sue NBC Boston. Not sure what that's about. Apparently, the judge might have been having Zoom calls with a witness in between direct and cross. Unsure what that's necessarily about. That could be due to legitimate things such as coordination or things, or it could be illegitimate. It's not necessarily problematic, but it is obviously something of note. If the judge was having some sort of Zoom call, particularly if counsel was unaware of the call, would be potentially problematic. So a note of potential caution, but not necessarily automatically a problem, depending on what was being said and why. What else do we have relating to this? And nothing else I'm seeing right now out on Twitter relating to this. Just scrolling some more to see if there's anything else going on. Yeah, there's been an extended break. Family and counsel have been called back in, and then everyone on the second floor was told to move to the first floor. So it looks like they cleared the floor of the courtroom potentially. Apparently it started out as according to Jessica Machado on Twitter, apparently started out as a regular break. Around the time that should have been over, the court called the family back in with counsel. About 5 minutes after that, they told everyone waiting in the hall to move downstairs. The district attorney's office is downstairs. So something relating to that. Courtesy of, oh, they're back. They're back. So maybe we'll find out what happened, but probably not.
Oh, these?
All right. So no obvious changes so far. The mystery continues. Very exciting. If there's a mistrial, I'm going to lose my shit. All right, back to Spinny Fan. I don't know. I don't want there to be a mistrial just because I don't want to do trial part 3. It's like I don't want to do any more on this. I don't want any more. Come on, let's just do this trial, please. It would. I'm hard pressed to believe there's a mistrial over whatever happened. That seems implausible. Not for at least reasons from this particular judge, but I'm just saying. If there's a mistrial, I'm quitting the game. I'm quitting the game. Would jeopardy attach? Yeah, jeopardy has absolutely attached. It would have to be for manifest necessity.
Sometimes there are matters that we need to address, and that's what happened here. So I appreciate your patience. Mr. Jackson, could we please have Ms. McKay back in here?
We're going to get no further information relating to what happened. Sad. Unspecified issues. The mystery develops. Yeah, I didn't think we were going to find out what happened. Now it's just up to the rumor mill, right? Who heard what from whom and what rumors are flying back and forth. So now it's just the rumor mill. Yeah, they're not going to tell us anything. I didn't expect them to. That seemed unlikely.
All right, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. When last we left off, we were talking a little bit about some of the familial connections that your family has with certain law enforcement agencies. We talked about Boston Police Department, obviously, Brian Albert. We talked a little bit about Massachusetts State Police and knowing friends of friends with regard to Chris and Julie, correct?
Yeah.
Knowing friends of Chris and Julie?
Friends of friends of Chris and Julie.
Is that your relationship?
With who?
I'd asked you about. I'll ask you a different question.
Okay.
A little bit vague. Courtney Proctor is friends with Julie's sister.
Yes.
And obviously Courtney also knows Julie and Chris, correct?
Sustained.
And there's also a connection to Canton Police Department through Kevin Albert. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you answer that? Is there a connection? Do you have a connection with the Canton Police Department through Kevin Albert?
Not with the police department, but Kevin Albert is Brian Albert's brother.
Right. And Kevin works for whom?
The Canton Police.
Thank you. So you've been interviewed many times by different law enforcement agencies, be they Massachusetts State Police, Canton Police, or otherwise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Those interviews have not just been over the period of weeks, it's been over the period of weeks and months and even years since this occurred, correct?
Yes.
You were contacted by another law enforcement agency that was not Massachusetts State Police and not Canton Police Department at one point in April of 2023. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I want to talk for a second about that series of interview, or that interview. You were contacted at your residence by these members of this law enforcement agency, correct?
Yes.
All right. Later that same day, you did sit down with those same law enforcement officers for a formal interview.
On that,
same day that you were contacted by them, they also went into your home and actually interviewed you, correct?
yes, it was brief.
All right. Those law enforcement officers identified themselves as being associated with an agency that is not Massachusetts State Police. You understood that.
Yes.
And you understood that they were not involved with Canton Police Department either, correct?
Correct.
Completely separate agency, is that right?
Yes.
During the course of that interview, those officers informed you very specifically, Ms. McCabe, that it is a crime to lie to them even during an interview, correct?
Yes.
Those law enforcement officers informed you that they were investigating certain circumstances attendant to John O'Keefe's death, correct?
They were very vague on what they were.
Understood.
I don't know what they were investigating.
But you did understand that it was having something to do with your involvement at 34 Fairview on January 28th, 29th, 2022.
Objection.
As a witness or otherwise?
Objection.
Sustained as to certain terminologies.
Sure. Let me see if I can rephrase that, Ms. McCabe. You were aware of the subject matter of their interview, right? They weren't interviewing about a car you bought last year, correct?
Correct.
They were interviewing you about, basically, about what you're testifying to here, correct?
When I first spoke with them, the conversation was pretty vague.
But the subject matter, vague or specific, was about this subject matter.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. They first contacted you telephonically, called you on the phone. Is that right?
Actually, they walked up to my car.
They walked up to your car?
Yes.
Okay, that was the very first introduction, correct?
Yes.
At that point, they had not identified themselves, correct?
They didn't know.
All right, and at that point, you told them that you were not Jennifer McCabe. They asked you who you were, and you said, I'm Nicole.
I thought they were like selling something, so I was like, oh no, I'm not the homeowner.
Fair enough, fair enough. However, after you said, I'm not Jennifer McCabe, you walked into the house, they then called you on the phone.
Yes,
They were
correct.
still sitting outside your house.
I don't know where they were, but they did call me.
They were close by.
I'm not aware.
Well, the call came almost immediately after you walked back in the house, correct?
I'm not sure how much time had passed.
Give me an idea. It wasn't an hour. It was
No, it was
5 to
soon
10 minutes.
after. I'm just not sure. I can't tell you where they were located. I'm sorry.
okay. They told you that they would. At that point, they identified themselves as being law enforcement agents, correct?
When they called me, yes.
And they told you at that time that they were not with Canton Police. You knew at least they were not with Canton Police Department. They were not troopers with Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they told you that they would like to have an interview with you. They'd like to have a sit-down talk with you, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you would be willing to submit to an interview, but you needed about 10 minutes to get ready, correct?
Yes.
You ultimately did allow them into your home, and you did sit down for a formal interview with them, correct?
Yes, brief, but yes.
And it was during that formal interview inside the home that it was explained to you that it would be a crime for you to lie to them on any material issue, correct?
Yes.
During the course of your interview, your husband, Matt McCabe, came home. Is that right?
Yes.
As these law enforcement agents continue to question you, as law enforcement officers continue to question you at some point, you informed them that you did not feel comfortable with any further questioning and you suspended the interview, correct?
Yes.
Before leaving, however, those same law enforcement officers asked you if you had contacted anyone in those 10 minutes when you indicated, I need 10 minutes to get ready. Between the time they called you and the time that they showed up and came inside your house, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes.
which is why he came home, right?
Yes.
And you told them that you had called Carrie Roberts before they interviewed you, correct? At that moment.
I'm not 100% sure, but if you have it,
Can we confirm?
it seems like something I would do, but if you have it, could show me.
Absolutely. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay?
Yeah, another one.
Yes.
First, I'm going to ask you, Ms. McCabe, if you recognize that as being a report of that interview, just generally, yes or no?
It appears to be, yes.
May I approach the witness stand and stand by the witness stand for a couple of questions?
Yes.
Thank you. If I can have that.
Sure.
I want to direct your attention, if I may, and for court and counsel, page 3 of 4, starting with the second to the last full paragraph, going into page 5, top full paragraph. I'm sorry, page 4, top full paragraph.
Okay.
If you could review those 2 paragraphs, read them to yourself, and then look up and let me know when you're finished.
I continue to amuse myself by finding new and new ways to describe this woman. We're doing pretty... I've come up with like 30 different ways to describe this woman between yesterday and today. This is mildly hilarious. At least it amuses me. I don't know if it amuses any of you guys, but at least I'm having fun with it.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
Did reviewing those paragraphs refresh your recollection as to whether or not, as to what you told those agents initially? I'm sorry, what you told those officers initially from that other law enforcement agency, about who you contacted in that 10-minute interval?
Yes, I told them.
And you told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes.
and Carrie Roberts.
Correct.
I want to stick with that for just a quick second. One of the first calls you made after being contacted by these other law enforcement officers from a different agency, one of the first calls you made was to Carrie Roberts. Is that right?
She was the first one.
That's what I'm asking. One of the first 2 calls you made, your husband,
Right.
come home, there's law enforcement outside my door, I'm guessing is what you said, correct?
I don't remember my exact words now, but I did ask him to come home. Correct.
And
Yes.
Carrie Roberts.
Okay. Yes.
You wanted to let Ms. Roberts know that you had been contacted by certain officers from a different agency, correct?
I was curious if they had already been to her.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
You also wanted to find out had these law enforcement officers from this different agency contacted her, correct?
Yes, because typically if you
just
enter
asked
our
yes or no.
town, she's,
Ms. McCabe, yes or no?
oh, sorry, I was just trying to
That's okay.
explain. I'm sorry.
Is that why you contacted her, to find out if in fact they had contacted her before you? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you also
All right, let's change it. Let's see what else we got. Let's give this one a
what
try.
she told them, if she had been contacted by them, correct? That was your motive in calling her.
No.
So you just wanted to find out, had she been contacted, but if
Yes.
she had said yes, you weren't going to say, and what the hell did they say?
There
What'd
we
they
go.
ask you?
That's good.
Well, I can't say what I would have asked her, but I know I was calling to see if they had been there. Yes,
That was
is
your
correct.
that was your intent.
I called to ask her if they had been there. Yes.
So that was your intent, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Your motive in calling Carrie Roberts at that moment before your interview was to ensure that your story would line up with her story, Ms. McCabe. Isn't that right?
No, that is not.
You wanted to find out if she had talked to these particular law enforcement officers and what she had told them, so that your story could somehow align, or it could inform how you responded to questions that they asked you. Isn't that true?
That's not true. We both know what happened. We don't have to have a story. There is no story. There's what happened, and that's it.
So if that's true, Ms. McCabe, you have no
All right, I got another one. Changing it again.
if she had been contacted by these law enforcement agents, because it's just the truth, correct?
We're going through this whole experience together. We call each other about everything.
There would
That's
be no
nothing
reason
more than that.
So
I'm
let her-
sorry.
Let her finish her answer. Go ahead, Ms. McCabe, you can finish that.
There's nothing more than me calling and saying, hey, did they come to your house? That's what we did when the media showed up, when Miss Reed's private investigator showed up. We just give each other the heads up, hey, somebody's coming. Because we're just like normal moms.
go.
We're not used to this.
And that's helpful in making sure that the stories she tells are consistent with the stories you tell to different law enforcement agencies, correct?
No, we are not telling stories.
So let her finish. You said no what?
I said, no, we're not telling stories. We don't have to compare.
And if in fact what you were telling me was just the truth, there'd be no reason for you to inquire about who's contacted her when, for what purpose. There'd be no reason.
There's no inquiring. It's like when you're when the ice cream truck was at the street next door and I'm saying, did the ice cream truck come? It's really that simple.
So you asked a question,
Not about an ice cream truck.
an argumentative question, and she
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how the ice cream truck entered this discussion, but yeah, I'm not quite sure about that one either, to be honest.
was in kind. Next question. Mr.
Thank you.
Jackson.
That's good, Jenks.
You also testified.
I'll change
in
it, Jenks. That's a good one.
examination, Staying with Ms. Roberts for just a second, about a timeline that you and Ms. Roberts put together, correct?
Yes.
That's another example of the two of you talking about your own perceptions and comparing and contrasting those perceptions and putting it down on paper, correct?
No,
Yes or no?
it's a no. Can I explain or no?
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up questions.
Yeah.
After you gave that answer to those law enforcement officers at that separate law enforcement agency, they asked you, was there anyone else that you contacted in that 10-minute period before we got a chance to talk to you?
Thank you,
And your answer
TJM.
was no, correct?
That's pretty good.
And that was a lie, correct?
It wasn't a lie, no.
Was it true? Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so it was the truth. You had not spoken to any other person between the time they contacted you telephonically and you said, I need 10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that part of time, you didn't talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe, Carrie Roberts. Now you're testifying that was a true statement. No, ma'am.
I can't answer that yes or no.
It's pretty binary. Had you talked, well, let me ask you this. In point of fact, you did talk to other people. You contacted others, in addition to Matt McCabe and Kerry Roberts, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so when you said no to the answer, did you contact anyone other than Matt and Kerry? That would be, by definition, Ms. McCabe, a lie, correct?
No.
It's not a lie? Is there some shade of lie that I'm not aware of?
It's the way you're asking the question. If
Okay,
I
let
could
me ask it a different
explain,
way.
if I could explain,
Let me ask it
it
a
will
different
make
way.
more sense to you.
The agents asked you, I'm going to go over this one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agents asked you, in fact, did you contact anyone between the time we called you and set up the interview and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
The objection sustained. Watch the choice of language.
I'm sorry. I meant the law enforcement.
And to her point, though, she's not wrong. There is another option. There is another option, which I know Jackson knows, and he's being a little obtuse about it. But yeah, she could be wrong, mistaken, without it being a lie. A lie, by definition, has to be a knowing falsehood. So if he said, was it true or was it false? That would be a valid question. But he said, is it true or is it a lie? And there is a third option. False dichotomy, Jackson. False dichotomy. There are other options. Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Agency. That law enforcement agency, the members of that law enforcement agency contacted you. Sorry. They asked you who you had contacted between the time they first telephoned you and walked in the door 10 minutes later. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Data point number one. Data point number two, you told them Matt and Kerry, correct?
Correct.
You had actually contacted, they then asked you, did you contact anyone else other than Matt and Kerry, correct?
Correct.
And you said no. Is that correct?
At that moment, I said no, yes.
Correct. At that, or any moment.
No, at that moment, because they had just come in my house.
I asked you,
Only one person can talk at a time.
you said the word no, correct?
She was finishing her answer. Finish your answer.
I had said no because I was in a situation where there are two officers from a different agent had come in, were asking me questions, or they had said, can I come in and ask you questions? At first I thought they were selling something, then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest, I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made some phone
Objection, Your
calls.
Honor. This is
That's,
non-responsive.
so next question. Mr.
Thank you.
Jackson.
Ms. McCabe, after you said no, that you hadn't contacted anybody else, those two law enforcement officers from that separate agency who had told you it was a crime to lie to them, they left, correct?
Yes.
To
Subsequently,
lie. It's a crime to lie.
McCabe, your husband,
Objection.
Sustained.
they left you their card so you could call them if need be, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you in fact did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the conversation you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you call them back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me
Objection.
that I lied to you and I better clear that lie up?
So,
It's not a lie.
jurors, remember I told you before that
I'm frustrated by this because he's doing the same thing that chat sometimes does on this point. It's like, yeah, there is another option. It isn't necessarily a lie. And I've tried to clarify this point multiple times. And Jackson's doing the same thing. Just because she said something at one time and another thing another time doesn't necessarily mean it's a lie. Even if it was under oath, doesn't necessarily mean it's perjury. People aren't perfect. They don't necessarily remember everything. That's one of the reasons, incidentally, that the agents gave him the card. It's like, by the way, if you think of anything else, give us a call. because that's not exactly infrequently for something to happen. Be like, oh yeah, by the way, I thought of another thing. Let me add. Or, oh no, wait, it didn't happen that way. Let me clear that up. Right? People make mistakes. They're not perfect. Okay? And I'm not saying it isn't a lie. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying she didn't lie. I'm saying it's not necessarily a lie. And this is a point of frustration. And Jackson is basically saying there is a discrepancy, therefore it's a lie, which is not true. It's not a logically valid thing to say. And Jackson surely knows that. And so I'm a little frustrated by it, just as she's a little frustrated by it, because there is in fact a third option. I made a mistake. I realized I had an error. I corrected it. Oh wait, no. Now that you mention it, husband, that's right. Now that you mention it, that's right. Let me clear that up. Oh, I forgot about that. It didn't happen that way, and so forth and so on. So it's a little, I know that I'm giving points to Jennifer McCabe here, which isn't necessarily my favorite thing to do in the world, but I'm just trying to be fair. Even though I'm basically saying mean things about her every 5 seconds in the descriptions of her, even though I'm roasting her for a lot of reasons, nevertheless, I want to be fair as I can be within the confines of my own system. And it's like, look, it doesn't mean that it's a lie. It could be a lie, but it's not necessarily a lie. And the fact that he is apparently willfully not, he's hammering this point and there's nothing to do. And it's going, it's just a pet peeve. There are other options here. There are other options.
That only answers to questions are evidence. Be mindful of that. Next, yes.
Yeah. It's not a lie just because it's not a truth, right? Yeah. The alternative to truth is false, not lie. Was it false? Yes, but was it a lie? Not necessarily. All right. Yeah. So a little frustrating.
And
Top of
may I?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. You ultimately called these officers back, correct?
yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful with them, correct?
There you go.
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple of people that I had reached out to.
You had forgotten.
Yeah.
Is that your testimony?
Yes.
You had forgotten. You remembered Matt and you remembered Carrie, but you had forgotten the others that you had just contacted maybe 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were 5 people that you contacted, weren't there?
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through them.
Yeah.
Yes or no? You know them?
I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through them.
Okay.
You contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Carrie Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works for the district attorney's office.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
And you also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law, who's the 30-year Boston police detective, correct?
Yes.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying. Objection.
I'll allow that.
Correct?
Yes.
For some reason, you did not want these officers to know that you had communicated specifically with Brian Albert, the homeowner.
No, it doesn't flow.
Before you talked.
It doesn't
to
flow.
them. Correct?
No, incorrect.
There was some reason that was important enough for you to lie about
No,
that.
that's
even though
wrong.
You had been admonished that it's a crime to
That's
lie
wrong.
like that to
It
those
doesn't
officers.
flow.
Correct?
Incorrect. I didn't lie to them. I had forgotten who I had called.
And all of a sudden, you had an epiphany right after they walked out the door?
Yes. Matt said, who have you spoken to?
Objection.
Yeah, that was very argumentatively phrased. I don't, yeah.
Ms. McCabe, I want to draw your attention to
That was not particularly good cross because it relied on a false presumption. And I mean, you're not going to get her to say it's a lie. You're not going to get it out of her, and she doesn't have to give it to you. You can't get her to say it, and she's not going to say it. And it's perfectly plausible. You can choose to believe her or not, but it is plausible that she forgot something. It happens, even things that just happened, right? I mean, again, like, I'm sure you can think about this as happened in something in your own life if you thought about it. It's like, can you ever remember a time where like you saw something happen and then like describing it and even like in the immediate aftermath of it and then remember like an additional detail? Memory sort of is weird sometimes. So it could be a lie, but it's not necessarily a lie. And the cross-examination was too aggressive and for not much. So that was not good cross. Try to avoid doing that, in my humble opinion.
January 28. You had gone out drinking with your family at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, correct?
I went with my husband and met my sister, yes.
And met the other family, correct? The other family members, meaning
My niece.
Matt McCabe, Nicole, Chris, Julie, Caitlin, correct?
Yes,
And I think you mentioned Tristan was there as well.
yes,
You were later joined by Nick and Karina Kolakithis, is that right?
yes,
Ultimately, Brian Higgins showed up
yes,
and Brian Albert showed up.
yes.
You previously indicated that Caitlin's boyfriend, Tristan, left early for whatever reason. He had errands to run or had to get to bed early for some reason, is that right?
He left before us, yes.
So he didn't stay through the shank of the evening?
Through the what?
The shank of the evening, through the course of the evening.
Oh, okay.
Is that right?
I've never heard shank of the evening either, so I don't know if that's a New England expression, but I've never heard it, so I was also confused. The shank of the evening? What? Has anyone else in chat heard shank of the evening? Is that an expression that just I haven't been exposed to? Please comment where you're from. Let us know where you live. And also, have you heard shank of the evening? Is that a thing? Maybe we can figure out if it's a regional expression.
Yes,
Okay. And ultimately, at the waterfall, John O'Keefe and Miss Reed showed up as well.
yes.
You didn't see any tension at all between John O'Keefe and Karen that night, did you?
No, I didn't.
They appeared to be getting along,
Yeah, yes,
sort of a normal couple having a nice evening out together.
yes.
Neither John nor Karen Reed appeared drunk or inebriated, out of sorts.
No, I wouldn't categorize them as drunk or inebriated.
And not.
But again, I don't know what the definition of drunk is.
Well, that's a fair statement. I'm not asking for their BAC, but they didn't appear to be stumbling around, falling all over themselves and sloppy drunk, correct?
No.
Out of control, nothing like that?
Nope.
Okay. You did see Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at a high top table sort of together through the course of that evening, correct?
We were all kind of around like a long high top table.
And John O'Keefe, and as you look at I'm going to use the perspective of the video that we've seen, that camera angle that we've seen. John O'Keefe and Miss Reed were sort of further off in the corner, closer to the bar rather than to the tables, correct?
If we're comparing parts of the day to parts of animals, and shank is, yeah, then what about other parts of the animal? What is the fillet of the night, or what is the petite fillet of the night? What's the mutton of the mutton chop of the night? What? I will now take your suggestions in chat for what other parts of day correspond to what other parts of animals. Please pitch your suggestions for what parts of animals best describe what parts of days. I look forward to this discussion. This should be interesting.
Along with the Kolakithises and those, and you, as a matter of fact.
Yes, at different times, everyone was kind of moving around. I spent the majority of the time that Karen and John were there speaking with Karen.
And that was sort of over toward the bar.
We weren't in the bar, we were at the table, so it was one side of the table and the other. It wasn't
enough.
like far away.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm using the bar sort of as a landmark for nothing. I didn't mean you were sidled up to the bar, but just
Yeah.
sort of as a landmark. You were closer to the bar than, for instance, in the foreground, which would be the high top tables in the foreground, correct?
We were just on the other, I'm confused.
Do butchers use these terms on their time cards? They've got special clocks in the butchers. It doesn't use numbers. It uses parts of animals to express time. How long did you work last night? I worked at T-Bone. That's a rough one. How about you? Oh, it's just a porterhouse. Oh, okay. That's not so bad. What kind of day was it? It was the grizzle, man. Is that how it works in butcher shops? Asking, I'm not sure, man.
Confused about this. We were just on the other side of the table.
Okay. You did see on the opposite side of that high top table, that's where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were standing, talking, and communicating with each other. Is that right?
I believe so. I was talking to Miss Reed. I wasn't really paying attention to them.
Did you ever see those two men get physical with one another that night?
I did not that night. I did not see that.
Have you ever seen a full review in all the hours that you've sort of prepped for your testimony? Have you been shown that waterfall video from the time you got there until the time you left?
Not the full video, but I have seen a good portion of it, yes.
Okay, and you've certainly seen the portion where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins get up from the table and sort of get physical with one another, correct?
I would say more like play fighting, and Nick Kolakidis was a little bit like doing it with them as well.
Okay, so the physical part is, all I'm asking is, did they touch each other? Yes.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And you described it as play fighting, correct?
But I don't, if we could watch the video, it might explain it better than I could.
We probably will.
Oh, okay.
But right now, I'm just asking about your memory. You remember them squaring off on one another, playing, but squaring off on one another,
I
correct?
don't remember them squaring off. Like I said, I just watched the video. I don't remember it from that night, and I didn't really pay attention. It looked like foolish, like guys just, I don't even know how to describe it.
From your perspective, having watched the video, it appeared that they squared off on each other and sort of took a fighting stance.
I didn't look at it that in depth, so I could not say that.
Did you see them walk up to each other and grapple with one another? Like they didn't notice punching each other.
Right.
I get that. Were they grappling with one another, like faking punches to each other?
I don't know.
Almost like sparring a little bit.
I don't honestly know.
But you did see
I saw them together. It's blurry, and they're kind of, I don't know really what they're doing.
Okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no. No.
They weren't on their phones, right?
They were engaging with each other, playfully grabbing at each other. I don't really...
Playfully grabbing each other, play fighting, correct? That's my point.
I'd have to watch the video to categorize it as play fighting.
You don't have that in your head?
I didn't know. It was a quick clip. I wasn't like focusing on Brian and Brian. I was just identifying that was myself in the video, and there was Miss Reed, and I believe Miss Reed actually did some play fighting to Matt.
There was, in fact, to Matt.
Yeah, I feel like she was about like this to Matt at one point. Yeah, in the video.
So let's talk about Brian and Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. Those two men, very large in stature, correct?
They're big guys, yeah.
Big boys. A lot bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
They took a fighting stance with each other and started grappling, playing, coming toward each other as if they were engaging in a fake physical altercation, correct?
I did not see that. I'm sorry.
Okay. You didn't even see it on the video.
I saw them on the video grabbing at each other. I didn't see stances but again, I didn't pay much attention to it.
And that's your best memory as you sit here today?
Yes.
Okay. Eventually, your husband, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Nicole, Caitlin, everybody went over to 34 Fairview at the end of the night,
Yes.
correct? The bar closed at, I'm guessing, midnight.
Okay.
Is that right?
I think we were wrapping up around then. I don't know what time it actually closes.
When you left Waterfall, the people that were still there included Matt, your husband, and John O'Keefe, is that right?
Yes.
You walked out with Karina Kolakifis and Karen Reed.
Yes.
And you said to Miss Reed something along the lines of, "You're coming with me," correct?
I said, why don't you come with me?
Okay, fair enough. You were prompting her to join you for the ride over to 34 Fairview. Is that right?
Yes.
You even went outside and sort of waited in the cold. There's a video. Have you seen the video of you outside? The surveillance video of you outside in the cold?
Yes.
And you're sort of waiting there, moving from foot to foot like it's freezing out, which I'm sure it was, correct?
Yes.
In a big puffy coat of some kind, right?
So the question was, I moving foot to foot in a coat? Yes.
My question is more, did you see yourself waiting outside in the cold?
I saw myself convert. I believe I was in a conversation at that point when I was standing out there with John and Karen.
And that's when you were asking Karen to come with you?
No, I had asked Karen previously when we were at the door to come with me because I didn't know how long Matt and John were going to be in the bar because they were in there still.
And that would have, by definition, brought Karen to 34 Fairview separate and apart from John O'Keefe if Karen had come with you.
Yes.
Miss Reed ultimately declined your invitation and did go with John. Is that right?
John ended up coming to the door, so they just went together, yes.
And finally, you walked away and went with your husband, Matt, over to 34 Fairview in your personal vehicle, correct?
Yes.
When you arrived at 34 Fairview, were you the first among the group that we've just talked about to arrive, or had others arrived before you?
Others had arrived before me.
When you walked in to 34 Fairview, where was everybody generally located? Give me a layout of the interior of the home, how you walked in, and where everybody was located, the people that were there when you walked in from the waterfall.
So I walked in through the front door. I took a right into the kitchen. And then there were people sitting around the kitchen table, Brian Albert Jr., Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, Caitlin Albert. My sister was over more towards like the counters and the sink, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room, and they were in there just talking. I think Nicole had like put up some new pictures, so, or maybe the Sun and the Marines, they might have been looking at a picture. Vaguely have a faint memory of that.
You indicated that you walked in the front door, correct?
Yes.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, this is your copy. I'll take care of the next photo. Can you just take a look at that photograph for just a quick second?
Yes.
Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
What do you recognize that photograph as being?
It's my sister's house.
34 Fairview?
Yes, sorry, 34 Fairview.
Brian Albert's house as well.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as marked for identification. There's a
Identification's fine.
thank you. If I may. What would be the next?
Exhibit F for identification.
Thank you. Is- Go ahead, just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the current description I have on screen might be like in some ways the most accurate description. Like everyone else is just kind of like jokes, and this one is less, yeah, on the joke to seriousness scale. This one is perhaps more serious than a lot of the other ones have been. A lot of the other ones have been just pure tongue in cheek. I feel like this description is kind of substantially more true than some of the other jokes I've been telling so far. Oh, I guess the best humor does have a tinge of truth to it, but this one is a little too real.
was that, Mr. Wolf? 3. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'm going to show a different exhibit until the other issue can be resolved. With the court's permission, it's Commonwealth Exhibit 3. Permission to publish?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, could you highlight or enlarge the house as much as you can? Thank you. Ms. McCabe, do you recognize what's depicted in this photo? I know it's a little bit of an angle.
Yes,
What is that?
that is 34 Fairview.
Okay. Can you, I think this laser will work. May I approach?
Yes.
Use that laser and point to the front door that you entered when you walked in the house. Okay, that's directly in the middle of the just to the left of the flagpole for this purposes of this photograph, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another entry door on the house that you may not be able to see, but you know the general area?
Yes.
Where's that door?
So that would be, see where these two windows are?
Yes.
The door would be kind of behind that right there. So it's right to the left of those two windows.
And Ms. McCabe, just staying with doors for a second, is there another door associated with the garage?
Oh, actually, yeah, there is, right there.
Right there next to that side door?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. You didn't go in the side door, you went in the front door that night.
Yes.
You indicated that once inside the house, you were sort of in the kitchen area. Is that right?
I was in the kitchen, yes.
You weren't paying special attention to Brian Albert or Brian Higgins, what they were doing. As a matter of
No.
fact, I think they went into a different room. Is that right?
There's a room, kind of the kitchen opens up into the TV room, so they were in there.
So the only two that you recognized at this point in the night, not being sort of with everybody else, were Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, separated out in the family room or whatever that room's called, living room.
Yeah, if you like just right there, you know, right where they are, just
Okay.
kind of right in the next room.
When you first pulled up, did you notice any vehicles in front of Brian Albert's house?
Yes, I did.
What vehicles did you notice? Vehicle or vehicles did you
Just
notice?
one.
What was that vehicle?
It was a Jeep.
Can you describe the Jeep for us, please?
I really can't. All I can say is that when I pulled down, the Jeep was on the parked on the street in front of the mailbox, and I turned into the driveway.
Okay. Did the Jeep have any special features on it that you remember, that you can describe?
Not that I can recall.
Big giant snowplow on the front?
Again, it was dark. I didn't really pay much detail to it beyond I just asked whose Jeep is that.
And did you learn whose Jeep that was?
I did, yes.
Whose Jeep was it?
It was Brian Higgins' Jeep.
And you said that it was parked in front of the mailbox, is that right?
Yes,
So as you're looking at the house, the mailbox would be closest to the driveway, is that right?
yes.
Rather than, for instance, the flagpole on the other side of the lawn.
Correct. So if the flagpole's here, there's the lawn, and then here's the here's the mailbox, and then the driveway's over here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay.
Thank you for that. You've previously indicated that the back edge of that vehicle, Brian Higgins' Jeep, was at the side, basically, of the driveway, which is what you've just described. It would be blocking the mailbox, the rear end associated with the driveway entrance, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever discussed having seen that Jeep in that spot with anybody else in this case?
Is that including previous testimony, or?
It is. And at any time, before you testified at the previous hearing, had you discussed having seen that Jeep in that spot with anybody else? For instance, your husband?
Objection.
Sustained.
Was there any other car on that curb line, if you will, other than the Jeep when you pulled in?
Not that I remember.
And Brian Higgins, if it's his Jeep, he's in the house, that Jeep's not moving, correct? So it stayed where it was.
Yes.
At some point, did you observe Miss Reed's vehicle pull up to the driveway? I'm sorry, pull up to the house.
I was told there was a vehicle outside, so I went and looked.
Where
Yes.
was that vehicle? When you looked that first time, where was Miss Reed's SUV?
When I went to the front door and looked out, it was straight ahead.
So that would be parallel, actually in line with the Jeep, correct?
Yes.
Directly in front of the Jeep.
I don't know the distance, but yes, you're correct. It was in front of the Jeep.
So if the Jeep was a normal, it's a full-size Jeep, correct?
I don't know what size it is.
Certainly the SUV is a full-size SUV.
Yes.
All right. So that would take up much of the room of the curb area in front of 34 Fairview, between the Jeep, assuming there's a snowplow,
Right.
and a full-size SUV, correct?
I'm not really sure of the whole area, but there was the Jeep and then there was the car. I just don't know the distance between them.
You gave a description of the vehicles that were out in front of 34 Fairview in your January 29, 2022 interview with Trooper Proctor, correct?
He came to my house and asked me questions, correct?
When you gave that interview to Trooper Proctor, you indicated to him that you first observed Miss Reed's vehicle parked on the street by the driveway, correct?
I never said by the driveway, no.
So if that's in a report, Trooper Proctor got that fact wrong, got that detail wrong.
Sustained.
If in fact, well, let me ask it this way. What did you say to Trooper Proctor about where that vehicle was?
Miss Reed's vehicle?
Correct.
I told him it was straight out front, the window. The straight out front of the front door. Sorry.
Trooper Proctor wrote a report about his interview with you, correct?
Correct?
You've seen that report in other hearings, is that right?
Yes.
Your interview with him was on January 29th. Do you remember the date? I'm sorry, I just said the date. Do you remember the time? My mistake.
I don't remember the exact time. I'm assuming afternoon, like after 12, or I'm not 100%. Sorry.
You had been contacted by Trooper Proctor while you were still at 34 Fairview, is that right?
Yes.
Ultimately, instead of coming from the Canton Police Department to 34 Fairview, you went home to your house.
I did.
To
Yes.
the Country Lane address.
Yes, I did.
And Trooper Proctor ended up meeting you there, correct?
Yes.
And in addition to you and Matt being there, Brian Albert showed up, correct?
I asked him to come.
So you asked your brother-in-law to come to the interview that you were having with Trooper Proctor formally in furtherance of his investigation surrounding the circumstances of this case, correct?
No.
But Brian Albert did show up at your house.
He did. I asked him to come, yes.
And he was inside the house when Trooper Proctor ultimately interviewed you, correct?
He was in the house, yes.
And you'd spoken to Brian Albert before Trooper Proctor had interviewed you formally, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Matter of fact, several times you had to have spoken to him at 34 Fairview. You've already said that, right?
Oh, right, yeah. We were all there in the kitchen.
And then obviously you spoke to him about the interview before Trooper Proctor got to your house to interview you on the 29th as well, correct?
We were just talking about what happened. It wasn't specifically about Trooper Proctor.
Right, not about Trooper Proctor. You talked to Brian Albert about the circumstances of this case before you spoke with Trooper Proctor.
Yes, I had.
Do you remember exactly what you said to Trooper Proctor about the location of the SUV in front of the house?
I know what I said, yes.
Okay, what exactly did you say to him?
I said the car was straight out front of the front door. When I was looking out the front door, it was straight ahead.
Isn't it true that what you actually said, Ms. McCabe, is that you first observed the vehicle parked on the street by the driveway facing in the direction toward Chapman?
Objection.
I'll allow it. Is that what you said?
Those are not my words, no.
Okay, next question.
You've already indicated that following the events of January 28th and 29th, you have spoken extensively with your family and your friends, members of your family and your friend group about what happened that night, correct?
Yes.
And that includes Brian and Nicole Albert, is that right?
Yes.
That includes Matt McCabe, your husband, correct?
Yes.
That includes Chris and Julie Albert?
Yes.
Includes other people that were there that night, including Brian Higgins?
I haven't spoken to Brian Higgins since, I believe, John O'Keefe's wake.
But you did speak to him that morning at 34 Fairview, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yes, he was there. Yes.
As a matter of fact, he's the one that told you to call Officer Lank back and have Officer Lank come back for the additional statement that you wanted to give Officer Lank. Is that right?
He may have suggested it. I'm not sure.
So in those discussions that you've had with all these folks, you've talked to the details about that night being at the bar, the house, who was where, all of those things, correct?
Yes.
You've talked about the timing of the night, who arrived, when people arrived at 34 Fairview, when people arrived at Waterfall Bar and Grill, correct?
No, those really aren't details we discuss. I mean, everybody kind of knows when they came and when they left. We talk more about, living with everything that we've gone through.
Well, what about on the morning of January 29th, when everybody was still in that sort of friends and family gathering inside 34 Fairview?
When I was there with my husband and sister and brother-in-law and, then Brian's friend and Julie Albert, I was trying to piece together what had happened. They were all being supportive. They had no idea what happened. We were just kind of sitting there in utter shock, waiting to hear from Kerry about John. It was nothing more than just us being together and trying to figure out what had happened. I had gotten a phone call from Karen to help her.
And during that conversation, or that series of conversations, you were sharing what your observations of that evening were, what your story was, how the evening started, how it ended for you, correct? Or the morning ended for you, correct?
No, I'm not correct.
During the time that you folks were inside the house discussing this, there was no law enforcement agent or officer inside that house, correct?
Correct.
So the entire family and the friend network that we're talking about, with whom you discussed all these events, everybody was entitled to and did coordinate their statements without any separation and without any law enforcement oversight, correct?
I was with my family. My sister, my brother-in-law. It wasn't really a big group of us. As I've mentioned, I had 5 or 6 people. I was in shock. I didn't know what had happened. They were just asking me what happened,
And
questions like that, and I absolutely told them. But it was no story. There was no us being allowed to do it. That was my family. They were just there with me.
But nobody was separated by law enforcement, correct?
I don't believe there was a reason to separate us.
Nobody. Well, notwithstanding what you think was the reason, you're not a professional investigator, correct?
I'm not, no.
You're not a trained investigator.
No.
You're certainly not a homicide detective, correct?
No.
None of you witnesses were ever separated, were you, that morning?
There was no reason to separate us.
I'm not asking you if there was a reason, okay? I'm asking you whether or not factually anybody was separated in that house. Or was everybody allowed to talk amongst themselves?
I was with my family. We didn't need to be allowed.
Okay. I'm trying this again. Was anybody in that house separated? Were the witnesses separated from each other? The family, who are witnesses, were they separated from each other? By law enforcement.
At that point, I don't think anyone but myself and Matt were maybe even witnesses.
Okay. I'm not asking you what your determination of who the witnesses are. I'm asking you whether the folks in that house were separated by law enforcement before you were able to have discussions about the events of January 28th and 29th. That's a yes or no question. Were you separated or not?
At one point, when Mike Lank was in the house, he had separated and talked to Nicole, then Brian, then Matt.
And then he promptly left and left everybody in the house together, correct?
He left us, yeah.
Right. Nobody was taken down to the station, is that right?
No?
As a matter of fact, Trooper Proctor didn't even come over to 34 Fairview, the scene of the incident, to interview you, correct?
I asked him to meet at my house because I had to go home to my children.
And he accommodated you, didn't he?
He did, yes.
And he accommodated the fact that Brian Albert escorted you to the house for your interview, correct?
Brian didn't escort me, no.
Well, he went to your house at the same time that Trooper Proctor was there to interview you, correct?
He came at some point, yes, by himself.
Before Trooper Proctor did the interview?
I'm not sure if he was there, if he got there before or when he arrived.
You've testified in the past that
Yes.
Brian Albert came to your house alone. I don't mean you came in the same car.
Yes.
But he followed you over to your house before Trooper Proctor ever got there. And he was in the house while Trooper Proctor conducted his interview, correct?
Yes, Brian was
All
in
right.
the house for the interview.
Thank you. You've already indicated that you have been discussing this case with certain other witnesses, not for days or weeks or months, but literally for years, most specifically Carrie Roberts, correct?
The case in general, yes.
Just before Carrie Roberts testified at a grand jury proceeding in this case, you were with her, weren't you?
I don't recall what you're talking about.
Do you remember being at the grand jury?
Yes,
Do you remember testifying at the grand jury?
yes, the one back in
April? I
April,
think,
yes, yes,
22?
yes.
That sounds
Yeah, it sounds about right, yeah.
You remember being there in an anteroom with some other folks?
What's an
An
anteroom?
anteroom, a waiting room?
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for your testimony?
Yes,
You remember Carrie Roberts being with you in that exact same anteroom?
yes,
And that was right before her testimony, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So, in answer to my question, you two were together literally just before she testified at the grand jury, which was the first formal under oath testimony that she ever gave. Is that right?
Yes,
When she testified at the grand jury, was that before or after you two had gotten together and created this timeline?
we did the timeline right after John had passed.
So she testified, the answer is she testified after the timeline was created, correct?
Yes,
Brian Albert and his family had a dog on January 29th, 2022, did they not?
yes, they did.
What was that dog's name?
Chloe,
What kind of dog was Chloe?
German Shepherd.
Was it do you know if it was a purebred German Shepherd or a mix of Malinois and German Shepherd, or do you know?
I have no idea.
Big dog,
Yeah, good sized dog, yeah.
70-pounder.
I don't know its weight.
Wasn't a little munchkin dog, though. It was a
No,
full-size German
it's a
Shepherd.
full size, yeah.
On the morning that you described going into the house, January 29th, 6:40 a.m. or so, you indicated that you burst into the bedroom to wake your sister and Brian Albert. Is that right?
Yes, I went into the bedroom.
It's still dark out, correct?
Yes,
There had been relative chaos on the lawn for a number of minutes, from about 6:10 until at least 6:40. When we went in, there were still emergency vehicles with lights on and engines running, and chaos, relative chaos, bedlam, as somebody has said, on that front lawn, correct?
it was more on their side lawn and down the street, kind of like all the cruises, a lot of them were behind their lot.
Right in front of 34 Fairview, correct?
To the side, in the side yard of 34 Fairview, yes.
And on the lawn of 34 Fairview,
Yes,
where first responders were responding, correct?
yes,
And you said my client was screaming to the top of her lungs, that right?
Yes, she was.
And Carrie Roberts screaming back at her,
Yes.
shut up or shut the fuck up, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Then at 6:40 a.m., under the cover of darkness, you walked in the front door of the unlocked front door of Brian Albert's house, correct?
I went into my sister's house, correct?
That wasn't Brian Albert's house?
And Brian Albert, yes, I'm sorry.
You then climbed the stairs up toward the bedrooms, correct?
Yes.
You walked into the bedroom door where Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, according to you, were sleeping. Is that right?
Yes.
So you would agree that you unexpectedly, in terms of their view, unexpectedly walked into their house basically in the middle of the night, middle of the morning.
Yes.
You indicated that when you went through their bedroom door, you sort of burst through, correct?
I opened the door. I don't know if I used the word burst.
You previously indicated that when you went through the door, it was chaotic because you were so amped up from the events. Is that right?
I don't know if I used those words.
Would you say that you were loud or quiet?
I think as I explained earlier, I was like where everything was going on around me, and I was kind of like in just a state of shock. And I remember thinking, I don't want to startle them, but I have to wake them up, because obviously when I wake them up, they're going to be panicked and think something terrible happened.
Well, why didn't you want to startle them? Something terrible had happened.
I didn't want to give them a heart attack when I woke them up.
But you didn't walk up and just nudge them and say, hey, Nicole, honey, can you wake up?
Okay, first of all, just general fuck me. Okay, it's been apparently that kind of day. So first of all, let's just fuck me. Second of all, kill me. Second of all, as I was saying, is this really what we want to spend time on? Is this really like exactly how she entered the house, exactly how she woke them up? Is this really the things we want to spend time on? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Because I'm not feeling the juice squeeze equation right now. It feels like too little butter off too much bread. It feels like, really, do we really have to be that precise about exactly how she went in the house and how loud she was or not, or how she woke them up? Do I care? Do I care? Why am I asking these questions? I don't know.
You didn't do that.
No, I was like, Brian, Nicole, wake up, wake up.
Okay, exactly. But you weren't saying it in that voice either. You were saying, Brian, Nicole, get up.
I'm not sure if it was that loud, but I definitely was. You definitely like trying to wake them up. Yes.
What was the dog's reaction?
I don't recall seeing the dog.
So, according to you, to the dog at least, if we can get in the mind of a dog,
What's my suggestion? Oh my God. All right. EB, again, like. My suggestion is not expending more energy than the result is worth. My suggestion is not. My suggestion is not fighting over pointless minutia. So if there's a point, then fine. But why? You know, it's like, what?
Relative stranger walks in the front door, climbs a set of stairs, the house is completely dark, walks into a bedroom door and starts barking. The person starts barking, "Get up, wake up, Brian, Nicole." And you don't remember seeing or hearing a dog at all.
Objection.
Sustained.
As you indicated, it's not that the dog wasn't reactive, it's that you don't remember the dog even being there, correct?
I have no memory of the dog, no.
But you do know that that dog sleeps in Brian and Nicole's room, correct?
It may, I don't know for sure.
The reason you don't remember the dog being there is because the dog wasn't there, was it?
I don't remember the dog.
Right. So when you walked out of the room, when you walked in the house, didn't see the dog?
No,
When you walked up the stairs, no dog?
no,
Walked down the hallway, no dog?
no.
Walked into Brian and Nicole's bedroom door, no dog?
I don't remember seeing the dog.
I realize that. Dog or no dog? No dog.
I don't remember seeing the dog. Doesn't mean it wasn't there or it
Right.
was there. I just don't remember seeing it.
Well, you didn't,
Correct.
No dog came up to you and barked at you, correct?
No,
You didn't see or hear a dog whining or howling, did you?
no,
You didn't hear or see a dog scratching at the door?
no.
There's no sign of a dog at all in Brian and Nicole Albert's house at 6:41 a.m. when you walked into that house, correct? Or 6:40?
I don't remember seeing the dog.
And this was a 70-pound German Shepherd, correct?
I don't know the weight of the
Have you ever
dog.
heard a description given about that dog by Brian Albert, anybody else? That dog was not good with strangers.
I object.
Sustained.
Did you know, as you said, you're very, very dear friends, and obviously dear friends with Brian Albert, relations with Nicole Albert, your sister. Are you aware that that dog was not good with strangers?
Object.
Do you know that?
I don't. It wasn't good with other dogs is what I knew, so I could never bring my dog over there. That's all I know about the dog.
Right. Had some aggression, correct? At least with other dogs.
Possibly.
Possibly with other dogs is the
Yeah.
answer. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you could remind the jurors, in your memory, who was the last person to leave the house, 34 Fairview, on the early morning hours of January 29th?
I believe Caitlin left after us, my niece.
Thank you. At some point, we've already talked a little bit about this. You said you looked out the front door glass. Was it a window or is the whole door glass?
The whole door was glass, I believe.
Is it like and pardon my ignorance, is there like a wooden door that is open and there's a storm door that's all glass that was closed? Is that what we're dealing with?
I believe so, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds about right.
Just a moment, Your Honor. Can we take one more glance? I'm going to back up for a quick second.
Okay.
Can we take one more glance at that exhibit 3 with the court's permission?
Okay.
Thank you. And can you enhance that just a little bit, please? Thank you so much. May I approach?
Yes.
Forgot to ask you, and I apologize, Ms. McKay.
Thank you.
One more point of reference. Can you please show the jurors where Brian and Nicole Albert's bedroom window is in that photograph?
Sure, it's right there.
Upper left window, uppermost left window, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Go.
let me get back on track. You indicated that you looked out that storm door and saw Miss Reed's vehicle, her SUV, directly in front of you, correct?
Yes.
That was the first time you noted or clocked that SUV being there?
First time, sorry.
The first time you noted the SUV, in other words, that you visually saw it, it was directly in front of you. It was not back by the mailbox, correct?
Correct.
Did you still see the Jeep parked back by the mailbox?
I looked out the window. I saw the car. I really didn't pay attention to details of other cars. I just looked and saw her car.
When you first looked out that window and saw, or looked out the door and saw the SUV, what time was that?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Does the time 2:23 a.m. sound familiar?
2:23?
I'm sorry, 12:23. My mistake.
I'm not sure.
When you looked out the door, did you see any other vehicles at that time, other than the Jeep, other than Miss Reed's SUV?
I believe I saw lights, lights like over here somewhere, if the Jeep's there and the car, is there.
Okay, can you describe for the record what you did? The theirs don't come across on the record.
Oh,
so
sorry.
to your left
Yes.
is...
Straight out would be Miss Reed's vehicle that I looked at.
Okay.
I kind of looked at that. I remember my peripheral vision seeing lights over there. To the left, sorry.
All right, so the way that you're describing this, and that's lights to a vehicle, correct?
Yes,
Matter of fact, you know what vehicle that is.
I do, yes.
What vehicle is it? Describe it for the jurors, please.
It's Ryan Nagel's.
Ryan Nagel's what? Car, truck?
I believe he has a truck.
Okay. So what you're describing is you looked out the window, you saw Miss Reed's SUV directly in front of you. Right behind that, in line, was Brian Higgins' Jeep, and behind that was Ryan Nagel's truck. Is that right?
I'm not sure where his truck lines up. I just remember seeing lights. I just quickly saw Miss Reed's car and went back into the room. I wasn't, I apologize, paying attention for like specific details about cars.
At some point, you did become interested in exactly what time Ryan Nagel's truck arrived, correct? This is after the fact, well after the fact, months after the fact.
Yes, I did.
As a matter of fact, you took it upon yourself to ask Julie Nagel, Ryan's sister, to send you something, correct?
Yes, I did.
What did you ask her to send you?
I ran into the two of them.
I didn't ask you who you ran into, just what did you ask her to send you?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. A text message.
A screenshot of a text message.
Yes, a screenshot of a text message between Julie and Ryan Nagel.
You knew at the time that Miss Nagel, very obviously, was a percipient witness in this case, correct?
I believe so. It was very early on.
Well, I mean, she was in the house.
Yes.
She was in the house when Miss Reed's vehicle appeared, correct?
Correct.
She was in the house when you were looking at the vehicle.
Correct.
She was in the house when everybody came home came to 34 Fairview from the Waterfall Bar and Grill, correct?
Correct.
She was interacting with those inside the house at the very time we're talking about, right?
Yes.
She went outside at some point.
All right, I'm not beyond asking chat for help at this point because neither myself nor my mods can figure this out, and it's beginning to frustrate me, and maybe one of you guys knows the answer. We're trying to use Twitter's delegate feature so that members of my staff, the moderators, can help contribute on my behalf so I can focus on stream, and they might be able to send out some fun moments, on my account so, people are aware of what we're doing. That sounds like a fun thing to do. And Twitter's supposed to have a delegate feature so that you can designate other accounts to give them permission to post on your account. And I've done that, but no one can figure out how to actually post on my account. So they've all accepted the delegation, but no one seems to be able to figure out how they can actually post to my account. And when they try, it only posts to their own account and tags me rather than posting on my account. So I don't know if it's some feature that I'm supposed to set up. I don't know if it's something that I set up the delegation. I don't know what more there is for me to do, but it's not working. So if anyone happens to know what we have to change, or if there's a setting, or why they're not able to post on my account with the delegate feature, if anyone knows the answer to that, please help. please help. We're kind of frustrated, and we need your assistance. Help.
To talk to your brother outside the house, right behind the SUV that you're describing as Miss Reed's SUV, correct?
Yes.
So you knew that she was, and you knew all this when you asked her for that screenshot.
I was trying to piece together.
You
the
knew
time.
all this when you asked for the screenshot. You
Yes.
knew what her position was in this case, correct?
She had no involvement. What happened outside
I didn't ask
is
you if she had
different.
involvement.
Objection.
Let her finish her answer.
Go ahead.
Ms. McCabe, finish that answer.
I didn't. What happened outside was separate from anything that happened inside.
I'm going to ask you again. You knew all of that information, that Julie Nagel was a percipient witness in this case, as was everyone else inside 34 Fairview, when you asked for that screenshot, correct?
Yes.
That is another example of you coordinating information with other witnesses in this case, correct?
No, that is not correct.
Were you ever advised by Michael Proctor not to coordinate information with other witnesses in the case? Did he ever say, don't do that?
I don't recall.
So you don't recall, or he didn't?
I don't recall if he did or not.
Okay. If he did tell you not to coordinate with other witnesses, this would be a breach of that agreement, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Indeed, once you got that screenshot, we'll talk about that in just a second, when you got the screenshot, did you ever share that with law enforcement?
I'm not sure if I did or not.
You never provided that to Michael Proctor or any other investigator, did you?
I'm not sure if I did or not.
As a matter of fact, Ms. McCabe, the only reason we know about that screenshot is because of the extraction on your phone. Isn't that right?
If that's how you know about it, I'm not sure.
You asked for that screenshot for your own personal use, for your own personal information, for your own personal coordination, correct, of what happened that night?
That's, what are you asking? There's 3 questions there.
Did you ask for that screenshot for your own personal use?
Yes.
And indeed, you do know what time it was that you looked out and saw Ryan Nagel's truck, because the screenshot told you that, correct?
The screenshot told me when Ryan Nagel pulled up. It didn't tell when I saw.
And what was the time when Ryan Nagel indicated that he pulled up?
I'd have to look at the screenshot.
2:23 a.m.? 12:23 a.m., sound right?
If you have it and that's what it says, absolutely.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm sure I did. May I, Your Honor?
Okay.
Take a look at that transcript, that column. Can you read that to yourself, the highlighted portion to
I'd
yourself?
like to be heard.
All right, why don't you come to counsel? Why don't you counsel come to stand?
It's just what we've discussed. It doesn't really refresh.
Okay, so it does not refresh her memory. Next question.
I don't think that's what she said.
That's what you?
Yes, that's what I said.
That was her answer.
That does not refresh your recollection?
Objection. Asked.
That was her answer. Next question, Mr. Jackson.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Take a look at the bottom of that page and tell me if that refreshes your recollection about anything we were just discussing. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe, having seen these, does this refresh your recollection about what we were just discussing concerning that conversation?
Regarding me asking Julie Nagel for the time?
Correct.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And what time did that was attendant to a screenshot that you asked for, correct?
Yes.
And that time was what?
Objection.
Do you remember the time?
Can I look at the paper? I was reading everything. I didn't
So
look at the
the
exact
question is
time.
whether you remember the.
Oh, do I remember it? I don't remember the exact time, but I can read it off the paper. That's different than a memory.
That's different. Next question.
So this does not reflect your recollection as to the time that was reflected on that screenshot.
I can read the time, but in my memory,
That's not my question. I have to do it this way, Ms.
Okay,
McCabe.
sorry.
Does it refresh your recollection as you sit here, having read this, as to the time that was reflected on that screenshot?
I don't, sitting here today, the only reason I know there's a time is because of what's on that paper.
But you did ask for a screenshot from Ms. Nagel, correct?
Yes, I
And that-
did.
And that screenshot said something to the effect of outside. Is that right?
Withdrawn.
Just that question. The screenshot said something about outside.
Is that right?
I believe it said here, yes.
Or maybe it's here.
Yes, something
And it
similar.
was a screenshot from Ryan Nagel to Julie Nagel indicating that he had arrived.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, it was a screenshot of a text message from Ryan Nagel to Julie Nagel saying, I've arrived. In other
Yes.
words, I've arrived at 34 Fairview.
Yes, it was.
Because he was intending to give her a ride home, which she had asked for. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You did see Julie Nagel go outside and approach the vehicle, correct?
I never saw her go near the vehicle. I saw her go outside.
Got it. Did she ultimately come back indoors?
Yes.
Did she come back in with anybody else?
No.
About what time would you estimate that to have been in the course of that evening?
When she came back inside,
When she walked out and then came back inside?
soon after she went out, she talked to her brother, she came back inside.
And about what time of day was that? If you know.
I mean, this was all happening while we were at my sister's house.
Right. Was it 12:15, 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock?
Well, according to that paper, it would have had to
That's
been.
not what I'm
Not
asking.
according to the.
Do you have an independent recollection of about, if not down to the minute, about what time that was?
I could say I'd have to be. I wasn't looking at my watch that night, so it's very hard for me to give a time just off of my memory. I know what I've seen, but
Okay.
it's hard.
You did see both Ryan Nagel's truck and Miss Reed's SUV in front of the house at the same time, correct?
I saw his lights in my peripheral vision on the
Right.
left,
But the lights are attached to what?
the car, but it wasn't out front. Miss Reed's vehicle was out front.
Right. When I say in front of 34 Fairview, we're going to talk about the spacing in just a second. I just meant out in front of the house.
Yes, over to the side, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And you're indicating that, and I want to be clear about this, as you're looking out that storm door window, going from right to left, it was Miss Reed's vehicle, correct?
Yes,
Then Higgins's Jeep, is that right?
his Jeep was in front of the mailbox.
Then behind that, was there a space? And then Mr. Nagel's truck, or was the truck right behind the Jeep?
That's what I can't tell you. I just remember seeing lights. I didn't look over and pay much attention to it. I was just quickly looking at the Miss Reed's car, and then I went back and sat down.
Do you recall testifying at a prior hearing that it was, your perception was Miss Reed's car, her SUV, the Jeep, a space, and then Mr. Nagel's truck from right to left?
I remember Mr. Nagel's truck over to the left in my peripheral vision. I can't give you an exact location.
But there's no question in your mind as you sit here that Brian Higgins' Jeep was between Ryan Nagel's truck and Miss Reed's SUV. You remember that very clearly, correct?
I know that this Miss Reed's vehicle was here, and there were lights in my peripheral vision over here. I wasn't, I just was looking quickly.
So let me ask you the question again.
Okay.
Assuming that the lights are attached to something, right, they were struck, we've already established that. What you're looking at, when you look out the storm door window, is Miss Reed's truck, or SUV rather. So just behind that is to the left. As you're looking at it, Mr. Higgins' Jeep, correct? And behind that, Mr. Nagel's truck. You remember the Jeep being between the truck and the SUV, correct?
I remember looking out the window. It was dark. I remember seeing lights over to the left. That is what I remember.
Where was the Jeep as it relates to the lights?
I'm assuming the Jeep was still parked at the mailbox.
You saw it there. I mean, it's a 5,000 pound Jeep, right?
It was dark. I wasn't studying outside. It was a quick thing I did. I looked, I saw it, I went back to the table.
Okay. And I'm asking for what the saw it part was. Let's just slow down on the saw it part.
Okay.
You looked, you saw Brian Nagel's truck, then you saw Higgins' Jeep, then you saw Miss Reed's SUV, correct?
I saw Miss Reed's SUV parked straight out front, and in my peripheral vision, I saw lights that, yes, must have been attached to a truck, but I didn't study the lineup of cars. I'm sorry.
All right, so
Can I have one more question?
one more question.
Where was the Jeep? Was it in front of the SUV, behind Mr. Nagel's truck, or was it between the two of them? It's a simple question.
You're asking what I saw when I looked outside. I didn't. And I'm telling you exactly what I saw. It was dark. It was Karen's car there, and in my peripheral vision, I saw lights, and then I went back to the table.
Okay, that's the last question. We're going to break for lunch.
Very well.
All right, jurors, we'll take our lunch in the recess, and Ms. McCabe, you can follow up right behind the jurors and sit up here 45 minutes.
All right. Well, whoever in chat said that you need to be an admin rather than just a contributor in order to post, apparently you were right. Notwithstanding the fact how it's written in the Twitter/X guidance itself, which says that being a contributor should be sufficient permissions, but apparently it's not. Apparently you do need admin permissions. So apparently I had not given them enough permissions, even though Twitter's own documentation says that that's enough permissions. Apparently it wasn't, and apparently that was the problem, and I hate it. All right, how y'all doing? Yeah, I mean, it's not the way it's written in the guidance. It's not the way it's written in the guidance. I mean, I'll just literally give you the way it's written in the guidance. I mean, this is literally what it says on their homepage. Contributor can take action on behalf of delegated account. Post, repost, direct message, like, etc. Schedule, post, delete, post, create, listen, build collections. How does that not say that contributor is sufficient to create a post on the account? How does that not exactly what that says? I'm not misreading it, right? I mean, literally take action on behalf of delegated accounts, such as posting, right? I mean, I'm not an idiot, or am I? I'm not beyond the possibility that I can't read, but that is what it says, right? I mean, post seems to imply post, right? Right? Right. Okay. So apparently first of all, apparently you need admin rights. Second of all, what exactly is a contributor for? What are contributor rights for, if not contribution? What is it? What is a contributor if not a contributor? I'm going insane. It's one of those days. Okay. On the plus side, it means that we can now have contributors beyond myself to Twitter, which will help with our social media presence, which is nice. Great. All right. Exciting. I need lunch and I need a break. Should I break the stream and just come back in a half hour? Or should I put up some hold music for a half hour? Or what should I do? I don't know. Anyone have some thoughts? Read some super chats while I'm doing this. Read your super chats that came in today. KB all day became an uncivilian. Dookie Stan 616. Thank you very much for suggesting just changing the thermal paste. Not a bad idea. We'll try this evening. Just Rhonda, 5 gift memberships. Just James Collin, Uncivilian JM Fitz, Uncivilian Jefferson C. Post. Amateur Anth said, I think she's innocent and his cop buddies killed him. I also think she's a 304 and things got out of hand with her lover, which was another cop in my opinion. Could be. Could be. TJM for 499 says, looks like she wants a coat made from Dalmatians. Jennifer DeVille has arrived. What a twant. Nice. TJM for $1.99 said, Jen is why Thanos had a point. Also nice. TGM, completing the trifecta, said that they got the Blair Witch to testify. I thought that was pretty good too. Amateur Anth for $20 says this can't is guilty of killing her husband for her lover. That was probably another cop. It's partially while the case is messed up. Yikes, man. Man, never get married. Save yourself headaches. Fair. TJM for $1.99 said there's no Karen Reed, only Zool. Very good. TJM for $4.99 said perhaps her answers are just non-binary. They, them are fluid. TJM for $1.99 said the Avengers need to recruit Botox Barbie. TJM for $1.99 said the feds have charged lying to them for far less. That's true. If they can prove the lie, they certainly can charge it. And sometimes even when they can't prove the lie, to be quite honest, that is fair. Jefferson C. Post for $2 says, I appreciate your logical fairness here. We do try within my own limitations, but we do try. Cerebral Parasite gifted 20 gift memberships. Then Cerebral Parasite gifted another 20 gift memberships. Unforced EGO gifted 50 gift memberships. How very generous. TGM for $1.99 said, someone call Disney. She's a perfect wicked stepmom or stepsister, one of the two. I tend to agree. TJM for $1.99 said, Elizabeth Bathory skincare routine still working. Nice. Unforced EGO joined the higher tier at the uncivil posse level. Q squared for $20 said David Yannetti. Petty spaghetti confetti yeti for the defense. Hope that helps with the computer issues. Appreciated. And Q squared has been a member for 60 months. Appreciated and thank you. All right, good stuff. Uncivil needs a break. Uncivil needs food. Uncivil needs a stretch. Uncivil needs many things. I think Uncivil is just going to take a break. How long do I have? A half hour or something, probably? 40 minutes? Probably coming back at the top of the hour, so I've got 50 minutes, right? Probably something like that for a break. I don't have 50 minutes of filler. I just don't have 50 minutes of filler. 45 minutes? Yeah. So I've got 45 minutes for a break. I think I'm just going to kill the stream and come back with part 2 later, because that makes more sense, I think. So let me go ahead and create a stream for this afternoon to send you to, and we'll go from there. Today's only the 30th. Yes, that's what I want to do. Okay. Okay. And we're coming back at, let's say, 12:55. We'll schedule it at least for 12:55. My time, of course. Okay. Go ahead and I'll set up the redirect. Please make sure to like the new stream. That helps, of course, with the reach and algorithm and stuff. All right, so the redirect is set up. All right, guys, I'm going to take 40 minutes and not think about anything relating to this case or tech issues or other issues. And possibly step outside and take some deep breaths or something. Please make sure to like the new stream. I will see you in 45 minutes or so. Uncivil definitely needs a hug, I'll tell you what. I've been Uncivil Law. I will see you later. Until later, my friends, I hope all's well. Cheers for now, my friends, and goodbye.